Let's all eat together in our new family.
The Williams family conspicuously relishes their steaks. But inexplicably, only a familiar cup of noodles sits before me. Across from me, Catherine remains silent, looking down. Amelia leans in asking,
Oh, Catherine, what's wrong? Don't worry, eat up. From now on, we're your family instead of your mother.
Ignoring her words, Catherine looks coldly at Amelia, then strides to my side and says in a clear voice,
Let's go home.
I nod in agreement. Yeah. As we head to the entrance, a flustered John blocks our way.
Catherine, what are you doing?
Just thinking of going home, to avoid wasting any more time.
What? Do you even realize what you're saying?
John, visibly irritated, raises his voice and grabs Catherine's arm. Catherine shakes off his hand and shouts loudly.
Do you even know what you're doing?
Then, Catherine and I confront the Williams family with a certain truth. I'm Michelle, 50 years old. Having lost my husband to illness 18 years ago, I've raised my daughter Catherine single-handedly. At the time of my husband's death, Catherine was only 7. Wanting to spare her any hardship, because of being raised by a single parent, I aimed to provide financial stability at the very least. It was also to fulfill my husband's dream. Determined, I relied on my parents and after-school programs, working tirelessly. In doing so, I often left Catherine feeling lonely.
Why doesn't mom wait at home for me? Other moms welcome their kids home.
Catherine said that on a summer day when she had entered the 2nd grade of elementary school, she was biting her lower lip and there were tears in her eyes. It felt like a punch to the head. Caught up in work every day, I nearly lost sight of what mattered most. The most important thing was Catherine, yet I made her wear such a face. I'm sorry, Catherine. Gradually, I started to cut back on work where I could. Still, compared to families with both parents present, our time together seemed limited. Even when I came home early, there were times I had to work. I'm sorry, Catherine. After finishing overtime, I rushed through dinner and bath time, and hurried myself to put Catherine to bed. That's when I could finally catch a moment to breathe and see her peacefully sleeping face. It filled me with indescribable guilt. To think she can't fully enjoy her childhood. But without work, we can't live. If I fall, our home ends. Every day was a struggle. But it paid off, and by the time Catherine graduated middle school, my job had stabilized, and we started to have some financial breathing room. As a high schooler, Catherine became quite independent, often saying, "Mom, aren't you working too much?" showing concern for my health. Seeing her mature beyond her years made me feel both proud and a bit guilty. From then on, Catherine kept growing, advancing on her own, and I didn't have to worry much. Now, Catherine has turned 25. She's well adjusted to her job and living on her own. Kids grow up faster than parents think. At this rate, Catherine's wedding might be just around the corner. I find myself getting emotional, imagining her in a wedding dress. Still, I haven't heard any hints of her dating. I guess marriage talks are still off the table for a while. Just when I thought that, Catherine called me. It started as casual chit-chat, but then she paused and shyly brought it up.
Actually, there's someone I'm thinking of marrying.
I was so surprised I almost screamed. Catherine's unexpected romantic news was genuinely delightful. Tell me, what's he like? I wanted to bombard her with questions, but I restrained my curiosity. After a moment of silence, Catherine said,
He's a senior at work. He's competent. He asked me out, and we've been dating for a while.
That's wonderful. He must be a great guy. I might be biased, but Catherine is smart, kind, and well-raised. I've heard nothing but good things about her at work.
Clients often request her specifically, saying she's thorough and reliable.
I felt proud knowing how Catherine does her job earnestly.
There's a lot I can learn from him at work.
Is that so? Catherine's voice was lively as she spoke about him. I wonder what kind of person he is. Catherine's first boyfriend. I want to know more. But I didn't want to pressure her, so I waited for her to share more in her own time. After a while, she'll probably bring up more about their relationship. That's what I thought as I watched over her. Then, a few weeks after our first conversation, Catherine contacted me again.
Sorry for the sudden call, but I want you to meet him sometime.
The invitation came much sooner than I expected. I was surprised but thrilled. Wow, I'm so happy. Let me know when. I'll make time. I'm looking forward to it. Despite my excitement over the phone, Catherine seemed to have mixed feelings. When I asked what's wrong, she answered,
Well, don't get your hopes up too much. I just hope you won't be disappointed.
Her response was unexpected. What are you talking about? I'm not overprotective, and I don't have high standards. Most importantly, I trust your choice.
Yay? Thank you.
Talking on the phone always leaves me a bit frustrated because I can't see her face. What kind of face was she making then? I didn't know. Why would she, always so positive, introduce her boyfriend so hesitantly? It's not like her. I was concerned, but thought she might just be nervous. I convinced myself that way and looked forward to meeting Catherine and her boyfriend. Then the day of the meeting came. I'm so nervous. Does my outfit look okay?
It's fine, you look great. Besides, I'm the one who's really nervous.
We shared a laugh and headed to a well-known restaurant in the area. It's a popular spot for business discussions. Originally, we planned to have a leisurely chat during the weekend. But it turned out he was busy on weekends, so we decided to meet after work. We arrived first, and soon Catherine's boyfriend appeared.
Nice to meet you. I'm John.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle. I'm glad we could meet. When I greeted him, John responded with a smile. His tall, slender figure looked sharp in a well-tailored suit. He had a modern hairstyle, fitting for a man of his age. His friendly approach was exactly that of a promising young salesman. Since Catherine chose him, I felt there was no need for me to intervene. However, having been forewarned about certain things, I was on guard about what kind of person would show up, which left me feeling unexpectedly relieved. He's quite charming. What was Catherine so worried about?
Though our relationship is still new, I hope to marry Catherine one day, and meeting you today has been wonderful.
I'm glad you reached out. It was reassuring to hear he was serious about their relationship. I was glad to hear that, especially as a mother. He's serious, reliable, and interesting to talk to. Despite being such a good person, I wondered what Catherine was worried about. He's indeed a great guy. While thinking this, we continued chatting. As the drinks flowed and the conversation became lively, the atmosphere began to shift subtly. John's face turned red, and he was in high spirits.
You know, when I first heard about the single-parent thing, I was honestly a bit put off, but I'm glad you're her mom.
Ah, really? I almost dropped my glass. Even though we were drinking, I didn't expect him to be so blunt at our first meeting. I believe my face must have stiffened.
Hey, John.
In a hurry, Catherine placed her hand on John's shoulder. John shrugged off her hand with a shake of his shoulder.
It's fine. I'm giving a compliment here. Catherine, you're really detail-oriented, aren't you?
It's not that she's simply being detail-oriented. I thought to myself. Seeing John like this, Catherine sighed and held her head.
John often misspeaks. I'm sorry, Mom.
Oh, no, it's okay. Saying it didn't bother me would be a lie. I've faced prejudice against being a single parent more times than I can count. It's something you never get used to. It always hits hard, right in the chest. In the midst of this slightly tense atmosphere, John was the only one seemingly enjoying his drink. That was the moment I first felt a sense of discomfort towards John. At first, I thought he was an impeccable young man. But as the drinks flowed, his words became more and more loose. There were moments that made me want to shake my head in disbelief.
Catherine is too good at her job, you know. She has a great reputation at work, but as her boyfriend, it makes me feel somewhat sidelined.
John said that while resting his chin on his hand. I was perplexed, but he didn't seem to notice it at all. Maybe he didn't even care. But since Catherine is working hard, I tried to smooth things over with some irritation, but John waved his hands dismissively.
You don't get it. Catherine is overdoing it. And you know, women should have some vulnerability, right? It makes them more endearing. Long ago, in your era, wasn't it like that?
Him saying as though I'm from the distant past made me feel old. It wasn't wrong, but it certainly didn't feel good. Catherine tried to stop him with a stern look, but John just drained his glass, looking quite pleased. I wonder, times have changed, John. It's different from when we were young.
Well, your time was decades ago, right? But still, even today, a woman needs to support her man.
By the end of it, I was just bewildered and could only give a wry smile. After returning home, Catherine called to apologize.
I'm really sorry, Mom.
It's okay, I was happy to meet him. That was the truth. I'm genuinely happy to have met Catherine's partner, but I can't wholeheartedly support him spending his life with Catherine. I find it hard to celebrate. As if sensing my feelings, Catherine added, trying to make excuses for him.
John's been having a tough time at work lately. He's usually more mellow.
I see, he must be tired. Can't blame him.
Sorry.
If what we see when he drinks is his true nature, what then? They said they were dating with marriage in mind. But is John really the right one for Catherine? A cloud of doubt spread in my heart, but I couldn't express it to Catherine. I had insufficient grounds for criticism, though it seemed somewhat tactless. I guess all we can do is keep watching. Muttering to myself, I sighed. Let's just see how things go for a while. Yet, just weeks after that meeting, Catherine dropped a bombshell.
Actually, John proposed to me yesterday, and he wants me to visit his parents' home with you.
What, you mean to get married? I almost blurted out, with John, but carefully chose my words. Catherine, do you want to marry John? If it's what she wants, maybe I should accept it. But as a parent, how could I send off my daughter with this unease? I nearly intervened. As I asked nervously, Catherine spoke in a low voice after a few seconds of silence.
Well, there's something I haven't told you, Mom.
What? After learning the truth from Catherine, I decided to act immediately. For my dear daughter's sake. There was no time for hesitation. And a few days later, Catherine and I visited John's parents' home.
I'm so glad you could come.
John greeted us as he walked from the nearest station to his family home. Catherine, John, and I then walked towards his family home.
Both my parents are really excited about the marriage. They've been eagerly waiting. My mom has thought of Catherine as her own daughter even before meeting her.
Despite Catherine saying that marriage is still on hold, John and his parents seem totally on board with the idea. I'm looking forward to meeting them. I braced myself for what was to come and managed a smile. After about a 10-minute walk, we arrived at John's family home. As he said, his parents greeted us with smiles.
Well, look at that. What a lovely young lady you are. You must be Catherine.
Pleased to meet you.
Catherine responded calmly with a smile, but I was taken aback right from the start. Speaking so casually with Catherine in front of me, her mom, on our first meeting. Emilia noticed my stare and gave a forced smile.
Hi, you must be Catherine's mother. Michelle, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Was I too presumptuous in front of you?
No. As Catherine and I felt uncomfortable, her husband, Lucas, interjected.
Well, she's going to be our daughter anyway, so it doesn't matter. Come on, Catherine, come inside.
Yes. Excuse us?
It seems Lucas works at the same company as John and Catherine. They work in different departments, so that day is their first face-to-face meeting. Both parents are so casual at our first meeting. What kind of people are they? While I was still shocked, John looked at me, puzzled.
What's wrong? Come on in, Michelle. Our home is quite nice. You don't have to be shy around here.
Was he thinking I was overwhelmed? I wasn't overwhelmed at all. I was just taken aback by his rather unique parents. I never expected them to be so casual with their future daughter-in-law upon the first meeting. Sure, we'll come in. Feeling something simmering inside, I entered the house. The home was as grand and beautiful as they proudly claimed.
It might feel different from your home at first, but you'll get used to it, Catherine.
Amelia glanced at me and put her arm around Catherine's shoulder. Was she implying that we lived in a shabby home because we were a single-parent family?
The house is big, so cleaning is tough, but you'll manage, right, Catherine? You must have done chores growing up in a single-parent home. That's normal, isn't it? Poor thing.
I wanted to interject, but held back. Catherine started to say something, but without giving her a chance to respond, Amelia ushered her into the living room.
You must be hungry. Sit down, sit down.
On the living room table were luxurious-looking steaks for each seat.
We ordered from a famous local shop because of your coming, Catherine. Today is a special day.
Indeed, the steaks looked expensive. As we were guided to our seats, Catherine and I immediately noticed something amiss. This is... As I pointed to what was prepared in front of my seat, the Williams family all smirked.
In this world, you know there are all kinds of people. You've heard it, right? Living in different worlds. Today we wanted Catherine and you to understand that.
Amelia exclaimed joyfully. Next to her, Lucas and John, sitting beside Catherine, watched the scene with amusement. Their intentions were too clear, and I snorted. I see. So, luxurious steaks for everyone, and cup noodles in front of me. John clapped his hands.
Exactly. You're quick to catch on. Cup noodles represent Catherine and your past, while the luxurious steaks represent our family and Catherine's future. Isn't that clear?
Catherine remained silent, her head down. I too kept quiet, glaring at the Williams family. Thinking she had triumphed, Amelia said with excitement,
Let's all eat together in our new family.
The Williams family ostentatiously devoured their steaks. Noticing my frozen state, she exclaimed, "Oh," with feigned surprise.
I've just added hot water to your cup noodles, so please wait about 3 minutes. You're used to it, right? Sorry, but we'll start eating. Come on, Catherine, eat up.
With that, Amelia peered into Catherine's face. At that moment, Catherine slowly stood up. Amelia looked at her with puzzled eyes.
Oh, Catherine, what's wrong? Don't worry, eat up. From now on, we'll be your family instead of Michelle.
Catherine, with a cold gaze, ignored her words and walked briskly to my side, saying in a clear voice,
Let's go home.
I nodded in agreement. Yes. As we headed to the entrance, a flustered John blocked our way.
Catherine, what are you doing?
We're leaving. There's no need to waste any more time.
What? Do you even realize what you're saying?
John raised his voice in irritation and grabbed Catherine's arm. Catherine shook off his hand and shouted loudly.
Do you even know what you're doing?
John was momentarily baffled, then snorted dismissively.
Complaining about rudeness again can't be helped, right? This is like a ceremony for you.
What?
Catherine glared at him, and John shrugged with a sigh.
You always brag about Michelle, but she's just a poor single mother, right? A widow who couldn't even remarry for decades. I'm inviting you from that pitiful world to our affluent one, and you're still not satisfied.
The notion of a widow unable to remarry lingered. There are indeed people who think like that. Being a single parent often led to being shunned or looked down upon. Thankfully, there have been people interested in me. But since my husband passed away, Catherine has been my top priority. While there are benefits to remarrying, there are also drawbacks. After much thought, I decided not to remarry until Catherine got married. And she knows that. Catherine sighed deeply while looking at John.
I thought you were competent at work, but it turns out you're quite a mess personally.
What?
Angered, John turned red as Catherine questioned him.
Aren't you the type to separate work from personal life? But you might want to think about that from now on. You never know where work and personal life intersect.
Is this a threat? What does this old woman have to do with my job?
Catherine looked at me and nodded slightly. There was no need to stay silent anymore. Turning to John, I cleared my throat and smiled sweetly. Well, we're meeting for the first time, but actually, your company and our company have a deep connection.
What? My company?
John's face, previously flushed, turned pale.
What do you mean, company?
Catherine is cautious, so she didn't tell you. Actually, your company is a subsidiary of our company. My company, as I call it, was founded by my late husband. He had an interest in the apparel industry and started the business based on plans he made since his student days. The company has been doing fairly well, but after my husband passed away, I took over. I don't have the same business sense as my husband. Initially, it was quite a struggle. But I desperately wanted to carry on what he left behind into the future. I thought if the company stabilized, we would be financially secure. Working while raising young Catherine was challenging, but with help from others, we gradually improved. Recently, the business has been booming.
That's nonsense. Catherine never said anything like that.
John nervously looked at her, who didn't even meet his eyes as she responded.
I don't want any special treatment just because I'm my mom's daughter. Only the president, Noah, knows about this in our company.
Noah, he knows.
Catherine nodded and then gave me a meaningful look.
By the way, Noah has been a fan of my mom for a long time. But because of me, he never made a move.
Hey, don't say unnecessary things. Secretly, after my husband passed away, Noah had confessed his feelings to me several times. I turned him down, deciding not to think about it until Catherine was fully independent. I thought it might be awkward personally, but Noah continued to treat me normally, maintaining a good friendship. John's mouth moved rapidly, his eyes darting back and forth.
What? Michelle is the president of our parent company, and Noah is a fan. What? What?
There will be no marriage between you and Catherine, so please don't act too familiar with me. John looked utterly confused. But the conversation wasn't over yet. I was almost ready to leave because of the treatment we received, but there was something else I needed to ask him. That's the very reason I came here today. John, I heard you have a good reputation at work, but you've been taking advantage of that to do whatever you want, haven't you?
What?
John's face turned pale, and he twitched nervously. He probably knew what this was about. His eyes swam with uncertainty. I heard you've been indiscriminately making advances on the temporary staff. Surely, with your position, many would happily accept.
How do you know that?
John's eyes widened. He glanced at his parents briefly before shaking his head at me.
No, you've got it wrong. I did approach them, but it was to improve the office atmosphere.
His nervous behavior was suspicious, no matter how you looked at it. It's surprising he could lie so easily. If he made advances on others in this manner, anyone would doubt him. I, too, might have been fooled by John at the first meeting. With such a facade, it's no wonder temporary employees fell for it. Even after that, he still tried making excuses furiously. You made the same excuses to Catherine, didn't you? Because she's honest and serious, she believed you completely. Even though she trusted him, the idea of marriage made her anxious again, and that's when she confided in me. After hearing everything from Catherine, I became really anxious too. So, after his proposal, I hired a detective agency to investigate him.
That's an invasion of privacy.
John was completely flustered. But his reaction had said it. All the findings were damning. John had physical relationships with multiple women. Some were even hinted at contract extensions, despite him having no such authority. Poor things, they were all deceived. John looked down, trembling, but suddenly raised his head and shouted.
So what? That alone boosts their motivation for work. I'm not wrong. In fact, I'm doing something beneficial for the company.
No sign of remorse, just back talk. It's appalling how unapologetic he was. How many temporary employees were manipulated by this man? Temporary workers are, in a way, employees entrusted to us by the agency. You seemed to look down on them, but they are not the kind of people who deserve that.
That's just a pretty lie. Temp workers are just a bunch of people who couldn't become permanent employees, right? Just a collection of low-grade people. Of course, we permanent employees are superior.
There's no saving this man. The fact that his parents were nodding in agreement behind him was incomprehensible to me. He must have been raised with a certain kind of elite education from a young age. Comparing himself to others, looking down on them, and basking in a sense of superiority is just his and their way. Talking to such people is probably a waste of time. It seems like it will take a long time for you to understand. But well, if you find yourself in that situation, maybe you'll quickly learn the hard way.
What?
Because you'll be unemployed, by your standards. You're going to be below a temp worker, right, the lowest of the low. John looked at me with pleading eyes, shaking his head.
I don't understand what you mean.
Do you think the company will continue to employ you after finding out how you've been treating the temp staff? You're fired, Noah. He was furious.
No, wait, that can't be true. Impossible.
John tried to grab my arm, but Catherine knocked his hand away.
Don't touch my mom with your filthy hands. Different worlds, huh? Good. We don't live in the same vile world as you.
No, wait, Catherine.
Tears welled up in John's eyes as he approached, but Catherine didn't even glance at him.
I thought you were a nice person at first. I was deceived, but now I feel nothing for you.
Catherine pulled my hand and said, "Let's go," but his parents tried to stop us.
Wait, Catherine, John will change.
Yes, he made a stupid mistake, but he has a promising future. It would be a waste to leave him now. You'll regret it later.
His parents were visibly panicking. It was no wonder, as John and Lucas were the main breadwinners of the Williams family. With John's dismissal, their income would plummet. No more steaks for a while. And there was another reason for Lucas's desperation. Standing in front of them, I addressed Lucas. "Did you think it wouldn't be discovered?"
What do you mean?
It's not just John who's been foolish, right? Like father, like son, both of you are fools. Lucas was sweating profusely.
Please, don't let the president know about me.
Everything is already known. Good luck with job hunting, both of you. But in this industry, rumors spread fast, so finding a new job might be tough. The way they hung their heads seemed hereditary. John and Lucas both knelt down, utterly defeated. As I left the room and looked back, they were the spitting image of defeat. Later, John and Lucas were both fired. It wasn't just the temp worker issue. They were found to have committed various deceptions. Despite being high earners, suddenly becoming unemployed, the two of them saw their living standards plummet to rock bottom. They had to sell their house, and now, the family of three lives in a quite old apartment. Steaks are off the menu for a while. Notably, both John and Lucas were regarded as competent workers, so their dismissal caused quite a stir within the company. I have no interest in John and Lucas's future. My only concern was whether Catherine was shocked by these events. But it seems I needn't have worried.
I need to gain more experience. I was deceived because I was inexperienced.
She's been actively going out to eat with male colleagues and acquaintances introduced by friends. Despite being my daughter, she's incredibly positive and reliable. That's just like Catherine, I think. As for me, triggered by this incident, Catherine told me she wants me to let go of her.
It's odd for me to say this after failing, but if you, Mom, want to marry someone, please do. I'm already 25, so you don't have to hesitate or worry for me.
It seems Catherine is still bothered by John's comment about me being an unwed widow. I don't necessarily desire marriage, but the thought of having someone to share my life with is nice. Encouraged by Catherine, if he asks me out again, I might just accept without any excuses. After decades of acquaintance, I believe I could have a happy and peaceful life with him.
After suffering a stroke and becoming paralyzed on my right side, I moved in with my son, Jack, and his wife post-hospitalization.
Hey, we're here. Get out.
One day, they invited me for a drive. But when we arrived, it was just a deserted parking lot with an old temporary restroom. I don't need the restroom. I'll wait here, I answered, but they seemed not to hear me and silently dragged me out of the car. Their demeanor was so strange. At that moment, I was paralyzed with fear. Trembling all over, unable to stand, they looked down at me with a smirk. Then Jack's wife, Anna, picked up my cane that I had dropped and threw it off the cliff into the sea with force. What? Wait! Oh, no! The cane spiraled down and sank into the sea below in an instant. I had no idea what was happening and just stared blankly at the edge of the cliff.
Happy birthday! It's almost your birthday, so surprise!
They laughed heartily. Then they said, "Make sure you're back by dinner," and drove away. What on earth did I do to them? Would it be easier to just throw myself off the cliff? I couldn't stop crying, overwhelmed by my miserable situation. My name is Mae Johnson. I'm married in my early 20s and had kids, a very ordinary stay-at-home mom. My children are Jack and my daughter, Holly. Both were healthy and grew up well. But Jack was a bit too wild. Because of that, my husband and I had a hard time raising him. If I took my eyes off him for a moment, he'd be climbing trees or fences, entering someone else's property without permission, eating berries, or trampling through gardens, catching bugs. Moreover, he often forcefully took his friends' toys and broke them. We were constantly apologizing and compensating for Jack's troubles. When he started elementary school, we got calls from the teacher weekly and had to attend special meetings and accompany him to and from school. Fortunately, I was a full-time housewife from that time on, so I thought, it's better than him getting into trouble. He'll settle down when he's older. Thanks to that, elementary school went smoothly, but he still caused trouble playing with friends in the evenings. As he moved into upper elementary, middle, and high school, he increasingly behaved problematically out of our sight. His high school years were especially bad. With frequent nights out, unpermitted stays, fights with students from other schools, and even police issues. When Jack was at home, I worried, what has he gotten into now? And couldn't sleep. Luckily, he didn't turn to crime and managed to graduate from high school. However, after graduation, he didn't go to college and worked various part-time jobs instead. My husband and I worried, will he ever get a steady job? But fortunately, a gas station manager liked his work ethic, and he became a full-time employee. That changed Jack. He became serious and stopped causing trouble. He also moved out at 33 to live with his then girlfriend, now wife, Anna. My husband and I were grateful to the manager and Anna, relieved that our long years of parenting struggles were finally over. On the other hand, Holly, 6 years younger than Jack, was the complete opposite. While we were busy with Jack, she quietly drew or read books. And when I felt overwhelmed by parenting, she would tenderly comfort me. Even when I felt like a failure and wanted to give up, Holly's kindness made me think I need to keep going for Holly's sake. To me, Holly was truly a pillar of support. As she reached high school, she began to experience some nightlife. My husband was very worried, but I wasn't as concerned. Because, unlike the perpetually missing Jack, Holly always stayed in touch. Even when she chose to live in a dorm in college, she frequently called and visited home. And when she started living alone after getting a job, she continued to do so without change. Looking back, she was probably worried about us dealing with Jack, who was still living at home at the time. Being the kind soul she was, it's no surprise that Holly met her significant other quickly. He was a guy named Ryan Sanders, her boss at work. After dating for about 2 years, they got married following Ryan's job transfer and moved out of state 4 months after the wedding. She still calls as before, but living far away makes frequent home visits too difficult, so we only see Holly a few times a year now. Learning this, I felt a mix of happiness for her marriage and sadness about her moving away, but I didn't want to hinder her life and silently prayed for their happiness from afar. Jack, who had said he was moving in with someone, lived about an hour's drive from our home, but hardly ever contacted us. We only met during long holidays. More for him to enjoy holiday meals or stay over than to visit us, making me feel like a servant every time. Still, I accepted it happily, thinking at least he was independent and working seriously. Each leading their separate lives, I was enjoying a peaceful life with my husband for the first time in decades. We thought having grandchildren would make life even more enjoyable. But then, my husband collapsed in the bathroom and passed away from a stroke caused by heat shock. Our old house gets extremely cold in the dressing area during winter. I was aware of heat shock risks from TV and used a fan heater as a precaution. But that day, for some reason, the fan heater wasn't on, leading to a drastic temperature change between the dressing area and bathroom, causing his stroke. By the time I found him, he was already unconscious and passed away shortly after. The police later confirmed it was an accident with no foul play involved. I wondered why the fan heater wasn't on, as it wasn't broken. The police suggested it was probably due to him forgetting to turn it on, which is a common oversight. Though I accepted this explanation, I still wondered, wouldn't I notice the absence of the heater's sound if it was off? But dwelling on it wouldn't change anything. So I decided to organize my husband's belongings to cope. I thought it would be straightforward, but the task often brought back images of my husband's fall, filling me with guilt for not noticing the fan heater, and left me in tears. I couldn't make any progress as a result. I was likely depressed at that time. Again, Holly supported me during that period, taking time off work to visit me repeatedly.
Hey, Mom, you don't have to rush sorting through everything. We have plenty of time. Oh, look at this photo. It brings back memories.
She would say that, comforting me with her presence and smiles. Thanks to Holly, I managed to avoid losing myself and came to terms with my husband's death as a tragic accident. Years have passed since then, and I still live alone in our family home. To be honest, living alone in such a big house feels lonely. But I've decided to keep these feelings to myself, considering my age. Then one day, I suffered a stroke, caused by heat shock again. Despite my previous doubts about forgetting to turn on the power, I had indeed forgotten it myself, something I never expected. Fortunately, the season was different this time, so my life wasn't in danger. However, being alone meant it took a long time before I could call an ambulance. As a result, I ended up with a severe disability of being paralyzed on my right side. A long hospital stay for brain surgery and rehabilitation was decided, and I asked Jack, who lived nearby, to bring me the things I needed for my admission.
Hospital. How many days? I mean, I've got work, you know.
It's not decided yet, but I think it's going to be quite long. So could you just prepare and bring the admission kit for me, please, Jack?
Well, I'll help if I'm free. Take care, then.
He said that, hanging up the phone abruptly. I sighed deeply, still holding the receiver. If I'm free, is Jack's usual way of declining. When he says that, it's almost certain he won't do anything. Still, I kept calling him repeatedly. I understood Jack's situation, but I couldn't leave the hospital, so I had no choice but to keep asking. After a week of contacting him, Jack finally came around. Thank you, Jack. You really helped me out.
Hey, Mom, is your illness really that bad?
Oh well, yes. It seems there's no prospect of recovery, but it's okay. I'll make sure not to trouble you guys.
Is that so?
Seeing Jack's unusually serious expression made me feel uneasy, as it was hard to imagine him being genuinely concerned about me, especially when he had been so indifferent even when my husband died. After Jack left, I kept pondering why he looked so solemn. Seeing a patient in a wheelchair reminded me he might be worried about my need for care. This realization fit so well, I felt it had to be the right answer. I started thinking about how to live without being a burden to Jack and Holly. Depending on the rehabilitation outcome, it was almost certain I would need further medical care. It might be safer to consider moving into a facility. The only problems were the financial aspects of it and what to do with the house. First, I need to focus on rehabilitation. If I could regain some movement in my right side, it would make my life much easier and reduce the cost of care. Still, that alone wasn't enough, so I thought about discussing the house the next time someone visited. That would probably be in 2 or 3 months, giving me plenty of time to think. The following day, Jack and Anna came to visit together, which was surprising since they never visited unless it suited them. Were they worried about my care, coming to check on my condition? Having had no time to prepare, I made do with casual conversation that day. But then they visited daily, bringing magazines to alleviate my boredom and even flowers. Initially skeptical, by the time my discharge was foreseeable, I felt genuinely touched by their concern. One day, Holly visited after a long absence.
Sorry I couldn't come sooner.
It's okay. You have your job and family. Don't worry about me too much.
Don't say that, Mom. Your family too?
Holly's unwavering kindness soothed me. By the way, my discharge seems near. I'm thinking of moving into a facility.
A facility? What for?
I explained my condition and the idea of moving into a facility to Holly. She was aware of my after effects, but was surprised I considered living in a facility. Then she fell silent. I'm sorry for not saying anything, but living in that house with my condition is difficult, and it's safer in a facility, right?
That's true, but if you're just worried about living alone, why not live with us?
Really? But what would Ryan think?
I don't think he'd oppose it. But yeah, let's discuss it as a couple, and then I'll bring it up again. If you're okay with it, Mom, I'd like to live together with you.
Holly said that, showing me the same cheerful smile she had as a child. To be honest, I wanted to live with them too. But Holly has her own job and family. If I lived with them, I would burden Holly and her husband, Ryan. That thought made it hard for me to simply accept the offer.
Hey, Holly, what are you talking about without asking?
Jack, why are you angry?
At the entrance of the hospital room, Jack suddenly shouted angrily and stormed in, followed by an upset-looking Anna.
Of course, I'm mad. What's all this talk about doing whatever you want? We've been visiting Mom every day.
Jack said that, glaring at Holly with a fierce look. But Holly, being used to Jack's temper, wasn't fazed at all, and retorted with a look of disbelief, "So what?" This seemed to infuriate Jack even more, as he harshly retorted,
That means we have the right to live together. You moved out of state and neglected your parents. Stay out of this.
Jack, moving away was unavoidable for her, so there's no need to talk like that to your sister.
Mom, stay out of this. Listen, Holly, we've been preparing to live with Mom for a long time. So, we're the ones who will live with her. Got it?
Holly and I were both shocked by the claim of preparing to live together. Though they visited frequently, there had never been any talk of living together from Jack and Anna. Not even a question about my discharge date. Anna, is that true? Doubting Jack's reliability, I instinctively asked his wife Anna. She smiled and said, "Of course, we can't leave you alone in this condition." At that moment, living with Jack and Anna seemed almost decided forcibly. Although I felt a bit discontented for not being able to choose my own living arrangements, I believed in their kindness at that time and thought living together would be all right. However, I would come to regret this thought greatly. When I first visited Jack and Anna's house after discharge, I couldn't believe my eyes. Their home, provided by Anna's relative for free, was nearly as old as mine, with many uneven floors and narrow corridors and entrances that made walking difficult. There were clutters scattered everywhere, making it easy to trip, with no handrails and a cramped restroom. The only exception was the bathroom, which was a walk-in unit with no steps and a warm dressing area due to recent renovations. At least the bathroom is safe. I initially thought, but using it with my paralyzed right side was frightening and nearly impossible without a half-filled tub or handrails. In the end, I was resigned to taking showers only, regardless of the season. They said they were preparing to live together with me, but what exactly did they prepare? I wondered to myself as I put up with living in a house that only raised more questions. Perhaps it simply couldn't be helped, as living together was a new experience to us. However, my patience didn't just wear thin. It snowballed into something much larger. Once, I folded laundry for Jack and his wife, both working full-time, thinking I was helping. Seeing this, they bizarrely asked me to help with even more chores.
Take care of the bathroom cleaning, will you? Consider it part of your rehab.
From tomorrow, please take out the trash and clean up because friends are coming over. It's all for your rehab, right?
I kept enduring their constant demands under the guise of rehab. But there's only so much a person with right side paralysis can do. I finally spoke up, asking them to reduce the household workload. But Jack just yelled, "It's your rehab, so stop complaining and just do it." Far from easing, they even made me responsible for the most challenging task, cooking, criticizing me daily for bad and slow meals. I never expected that the two, who were so kind during my hospital stay, would turn so drastically once we started living together. Initially, I thought they were just irritable due to the unfamiliar setting of living together. But as I was yelled at and insulted daily, I began to think maybe my actions were provoking their anger. I felt increasingly cornered, and soon I was jittery at the slightest sound, never finding a moment of peace. How many more years must I endure these painful days? Thinking about the future made me wish I hadn't survived my stroke. My spirit was utterly broken. One day, after living with Jack and his wife for over 6 months, the three of us drove to a nearby supermarket. On the way back, Jack suddenly said, "Hey, as a thank you for all the housework you do, let's go for a little drive." While Anna nodded happily in the passenger seat, I felt incredibly disappointed. A mountain of chores awaited me at home, and I feared the scolding and insults if they weren't completed quickly. But I had no right to voice my opinion, so I just silently gazed out the window. The car drove deeper into a deserted, dimly lit mountain road. Where were we heading? Just then, the view suddenly brightened. We arrived at a desolate parking lot, equipped only with an old temporary restroom, backed by a sheer cliff. It felt like the climax of a suspense drama. Were they planning to take a restroom break? But that old restroom was too cramped for me. I decided to stay in the car, sitting idly.
Hey, What are you zoning out for? We're here, get out.
I don't need the restroom. I'll wait here, I replied, but they didn't seem to hear me and dragged me out of the car. Their eyes were cold and disdainful, as if looking at trash. Overwhelmed with fear, I lost the ability to speak. They forcefully took me to the railing by the cliff's edge. Could they be planning to push me off? A chilling terror seized me, freezing me in place as my whole body trembled. While I stood there, unable to move, they smirked down at me. Then Anna picked up my cane, which I had dropped, and hurled it off the cliff into the sea with force. Wait, oh, no. The cane spiraled down, sinking instantly into the sea below. I was clueless and just stared blankly at the edge of the cliff.
Happy birthday! It's almost your birthday, so surprise!
That was hilarious. It flew off with such force. You were just like yourself back in your track and field days.
That's irrelevant, don't you think? Anyway, we're heading back first. Oh, make sure you're back for dinner. If you need your cane, go fetch it yourself, okay? We won't help. Bye.
With that, they drove off, laughing heartily. Birthday, surprise. This was just cruel bullying. At that moment, my heart was completely shattered. What on earth had I done to them? Would it be easier to just throw myself off the cliff? I couldn't stop my tears over my miserable situation. Reaching into my pouch for a tissue, I saw the charm Holly had given me. Right, I should ask Holly for help. I usually refrained from worrying her, but this time I was desperate. If I could just contact Holly, things might get better. I tried to move toward where people were. But without my cane, I couldn't stand or walk. Looking around for something to use as a cane, I found nothing. Feeling utterly hopeless, a car then entered the parking lot. Thinking I was saved, I desperately called out, "Please help."
Mom?
At the same time I called out, I heard Holly's voice calling me. Holly jumped out of the car and ran to me, embracing me tightly. "Holly, is it really, Holly?"
It's me. I'm so glad you're safe.
It felt surreal, like witnessing a miracle. As the person I longed to see appeared before me unexpectedly. I touched Holly's head, cheeks, shoulders, and hands repeatedly to confirm her presence. "Oh, it's really you. It's really Holly." Holly nodded and hugged me tightly. Then, along with her husband, Ryan, helped me into their car.
We decided to come see you when your location on the GPS hadn't changed for a while, making us worried. What happened?
Well, I explained to Holly and Ryan about being abandoned and how I felt living with Jack and his wife. I wish I had gone to a facility instead. I regret it so much. As I recalled, tears started flowing again. Holly hugged me once more, comforting me.
You did nothing wrong, Mom. I regret leaving you with my brother. I won't forgive him this time.
Seeing Holly so angry was a first for me, her mother. We decided to go to Jack's house for a confrontation. While driving, I asked Holly several puzzling questions. "Holly, how did you know I was there? And you weren't supposed to visit today, right?
Well, your birthday was coming up, and I planned a surprise because you seemed down lately.
Holly explained how she ended up rescuing me. We had a tradition of throwing a surprise party for birthdays, though calling it a surprise became a bit predictable. However, the details were always kept secret. I had forgotten about this tradition since Jack and Holly moved out.
And I found your location thanks to the charm I gave you, remember? It has a GPS tracker.
Did you tell me about it? I remember you telling me to always carry it. I realized I hadn't fully grasped the modern features Holly mentioned. But thankfully, I had kept my promise to carry it, which likely saved me. I felt deeply grateful for Holly, who always cared for me from afar. Soon, we arrived at Jack's house. Laughter from inside hinted they were unaware of our approach. Holly, with a fiercer look than before, used the keys I gave her to silently enter the house.
What? Holly, why?
You worthless brother. You're no family. You're such a disgrace.
Holly's fierce demeanor made everyone present recoil in fear.
Hey, what's the deal barging in like this? Mom isn't here right now. Wait, Mom.
Are you kidding me?
My presence stunned everyone. Upon noticing me, Jack and his wife turned pale as if they had seen a ghost. Overwhelmed by the return of my anxiety, I felt unable to stand. But Ryan quickly led me to a chair in the living room, and Holly rushed over asking if I was okay. The difference between my son and daughter astonished me.
Jack, what is this? How could you make our half-paralyzed mother live in such a terrible place? And what about leaving her stranded earlier? What are you thinking?
Shut up. I don't care about this old hag. I thought by making her work, we'd get the inheritance sooner, but she's useless.
Jack's callous words shocked me, Holly, and Ryan. We were left speechless.
Well, she's still going to the hospital, right? It's about time. We've taken care of her, so all the insurance money should be ours.
Jack boasted, with Anna praising him proudly. Their ridiculous demeanor left me more astonished than angry. But why did the insurance money come up suddenly? When I asked Jack, he said, when you asked for the admission set, didn't you say you needed a stamp? While searching for it, I found your bank book and insurance papers. Anna had told him that relatives who provide care often receive a larger share of the inheritance, prompting their forceful cohabitation plan. Realizing my naive misjudgment, I understood then that their kindness wasn't out of love or concern, but for the money after my death.
I thought I'd get the inheritance soon after hearing about your hospitalization. We panicked when you talked about moving to a facility, and Holly suggested living together. Then you started helping around the house. Are you really sick? When will I get the inheritance?
Jack's harsh words deepened my disappointment. Yet, I saw this as an opportunity. I clarified to Jack that my hospitalization was not life-threatening and my visits were for monitoring, preventive measures, and rehabilitation advice. So I'm still quite fit. Now that inheritance came up, let's clear this up. I'll pass everything, including the insurance and inheritance, to Holly and Ryan.
What? Wait, the inheritance is mine, right?
Jack's absurd claim baffled me. His plan was to disinherit Holly by claiming he alone took care of me and managed my affairs. However, I wasn't dying, and his nonsensical plan was far from reality. It seems Jack's mind was filled with nothing but the thought of getting money the easy way, fearing they might concoct more schemes for my estate. I made a significant decision. I understand your thoughts now. Since that is the case, I now disown you, Jack. My strong declaration turned Jack and Anna pale.
Disown? You're joking, right? How will I repay my debts?
That's right. I bought 3 designer bags and even a new car, thinking we'd get a big sum. We're in trouble now.
Jack and Anna had recklessly spent, assuming they'd receive my insurance and inheritance, and had even gambled their money away, accumulating debts.
Even if we lost big, we thought we could cover it with the inheritance. Mom, lend us some money, at least $10,000 for now.
Dismissing Jack's ludicrous request, I decided to return to my beloved home, packing only essentials. Back home, I opted for in-home care services that provide bath and household support, allowing me to have some peace despite the cost. Despite my declaration of having disowned him, Jack and Anna persistently begged for money, choosing times when care services were absent to make loud, threatening visits. Their appalling behavior led to frequent police reports. Eventually, they barged in, attempting to steal my bank book, leading to their arrest for attempted burglary. The fear of their return lingered, preventing a truly peaceful life. One day, Holly and Ryan urgently visited, cautiously checking the surroundings and locks. Holly, why are you looking around so anxiously?
2 days ago, a friend saw Jack being chased by some menacing individuals near the station.
Concerned for my safety, Holly rushed over, proposing to live together again.
Ryan agrees too. We can't leave you alone anymore. Please, come with us, Mom.
Holly, despite my condition, please take care of me, I said to her sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Holly's joyful tears warmed everyone present. After selling my old house, I moved to Holly and Ryan's accessible new home, surprised by the barrier-free design. My room is placed next to the entrance, and it is equipped with a special bed, private bathroom, and handrails everywhere.
Even if you end up using a wheelchair, it'll be easy to move around. The private bathroom allows you to use it comfortably. All these were Ryan's ideas.
Holly smiled happily, and Ryan grinned sheepishly beside her. Once again, I felt truly fortunate to be living with this couple. Currently, Holly is expecting a new addition to their family, as she plans to become a full-time homemaker after giving birth. She's also studying to be more prepared for caregiving if needed. While I can still move, I want to do my best for my family. So I'm actively helping with Holly's household chores. Life has been tough since my husband passed away, but I've finally found a place of peace. I'm committed to my rehabilitation through household tasks, hoping this happiness lasts. I am determined to maintain my current condition as long as possible, especially for the grandchild, who will be arriving soon. Alex. I recognized my grandson, Alex, standing at the crosswalk despite the slashing rain, standing out because he wasn't using an umbrella. I leaned over from the passenger seat, flung the door open, and called out loudly as if scolding him, "Alex, get in the car now."
Grandma, Grandma.
Once Alex saw my face, he smiled faintly and climbed into the passenger seat with heavy steps, then immediately leaned against me and became motionless. I shook his shoulder and slapped his cheek repeatedly, calling out, "Alex, Alex," but he kept his eyes closed, breathing roughly, and wouldn't respond. Touching his forehead, I felt an abnormal warmth and exclaimed, "He's burning up."
Grandma's hand feels good.
It seemed Alex faintly felt my touch, murmured this, and then lost consciousness. "Alex, stay with me." I pulled out a thermometer I always carry in my bag, placed it under his armpit, and it read 102.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This is dangerous. Realizing this, I immediately called 911. Soon, I heard the shrill siren of the emergency vehicle, along with announcements directing the line of cars to make way. "This way. Please hurry." Unable to stay put, I ran out into the pouring rain and signaled to the ambulance. My name is Catherine K., 56 years old. Having lost my husband 2 years ago, I now work at a diner called Relax Place, just a 10-minute drive from my home, to alleviate my loneliness. I have been like family with the owner and his wife for a long time, and my husband and son, Mike, used to often eat there on weekends. Since my husband died and Mike became independent, those times have become distant memories. However, now the moments I spend quietly watching my grandson Alex eat are my greatest joy. Mike's wife, Jenny, found out she had cancer 3 years ago and passed away despite treatment. Since then, I've occasionally taken care of Alex so he wouldn't feel lonely, as if I were standing in for Jenny. Perhaps I am being healed of the loneliness of losing my husband by Alex. A year ago, Mike told me about a woman he was considering remarrying. "You can't keep feeling down. For Jenny's sake, and for Alex's, you have to move forward," I always firmly told him, and I was relieved to hear this news. Her name is Sarah, a colleague from his company. She's 8 years younger than him. Mike often recalled her with a carefree smile, saying she was always ready to help him. I wondered how he would work with such a smitten expression, but saw a spark of life in his eyes for the first time in a long while. So even though I didn't say it out loud, I was cheering him on in my heart. "You can do it." Sarah promised to quit her job and become a full-time housewife to take care of Alex after getting married. "I can trust you with Mike and Alex. I'm looking forward to our future together." I had a good impression of her at that time. When I visited their apartment,
Welcome, Catherine. I'll make some tea right away. Well, let me bake some cake too. I'm really good at that.
Sarah greeted me with sparkling eyes and an overly enthusiastic manner. "Oh, thank you."
Then how about a shoulder massage? You must be tired from the drive.
I was taken aback, but she seemed restless, unable to sit still.
I'm actually good at massages, you know. My parents back home always rave about them.
While she showed care for me, I felt a bit of discomfort at her eagerness to showcase her charm. From the moment I entered the room, her readiness to respond to every little action seemed overly deliberate to me, and I couldn't help but find it artificial. Furthermore, Sarah kept lamenting that she had run out of tea snacks.
If I had known you were coming today, I would have lined up in the morning to buy that popular pudding. What a shame. I'm such a thoughtless DIL. I apologize.
Sarah apologized so deeply that I felt embarrassed. Interacting with her, everything seemed calculated, but I hesitated to voice it. And after all, it's not my place to interfere in my son's marriage. Perhaps Sarah is just struggling to find the right distance with her new family. I convinced myself that over time, the emotional barriers between us would disappear. One day, a year after their marriage, Mike brought good news.
Sarah is pregnant.
His excited voice made me tear up. Is that so? Congratulations. That was all I could say with a trembling voice.
You seem very happy today. Something good happened.
My smile was so constant that even the owner of Relax Place teased me. A regular customer said my smile made them feel like working hard in the afternoon. I played it off by joking, "You won't get any extra treats for saying that," which livened up the diner. After work, I brought Sarah a bath salt and fruit basket, set as a pregnancy gift, hoping it would provide her some mental comfort. As this would be my second grandchild, I was thrilled at the thought of Alex having a sibling to grow up with. After parking in the visitor spot, I glanced at the park across the street and saw Alex sitting on a bench, looking down. "What are you doing here all alone?" When I called out, Alex looked up and smiled sadly. "It's not fun alone, right? I was about to go to your house. Want to join? There's plenty of fruit. Eat whatever you like." But he just shook his head, neither standing up from the bench or speaking, quickly dropping his gaze to the ground. I tried to take him to the apartment, but he resisted with unexpected strength.
I want to stay here,
he said, refusing to move, as if his feet were glued to the ground. There must be something. I sensed it, but felt reluctant to force Alex to come back against his will. "Wait here." I handed him an orange and went to the apartment alone. Exiting the elevator on my son's floor, I heard the laughter of a young man and woman. Am I intruding? I proceeded down the hallway with my head down, but the laughter was coming from my son's apartment. "What's going on, Sarah?" I thought there was a young couple chatting nearby. I saw Sarah and a delivery man in uniform at the door. They suddenly fell silent, and the delivery man left without a word. Isn't it odd for a delivery man not to speak to the resident after delivering? I asked, puzzled by the delivery man's behavior. Sarah then glared at me with an intensity I'd never seen before, but she quickly snapped out of it.
"Oh, Catherine, are you here?"
she said, trying to recover her composure. Then Alex came back from the park, walking slowly.
Hi. Did that guy leave already?
When Alex asked this, Sarah glanced at me and smiled awkwardly.
Don't say weird things. That guy was just a delivery man. A friend living far away sent us a package,
she said, looking down at Alex. Alex stopped in his tracks, not moving any further, and apologized to Sarah with a frightened voice. I handed Sarah the bath salt and fruit basket set. I heard from Mike. You have a baby on the way. That's wonderful. Congratulations. I'll help in any way I can to ensure you have a healthy baby. Just let me know what you need. While saying this, I looked around the room, but I couldn't see the package that was supposed to have been delivered. Alex used to greet me with a bright smile whenever I visited, but today, for some reason, he was silent, playing on his smartphone in the corner of the room.
Hey, Alex, what are you doing over there? Grandma came to visit you.
Sarah pretended to smile, but her eyes weren't smiling. Alex whispered sorry again, in a frightened voice, and then came over to my side, glancing at his mother's face. Sarah talked alone until I left, but during that time, Alex didn't leave my side or say a word. The next weekend, Alex came to visit me at my house. That day, he was as lively as ever, amusingly telling me about things that happened at school. However, when a delivery truck stopped in front of the house, he tensed up and clung to me. What's wrong? Are you scared of that truck? But you used to love trucks, didn't you? An older, gray-haired delivery man came to get a signature for a package. Oh, thank you, I said as I signed, while Alex stayed hidden behind me. The delivery man greeted Alex with a big smile, saying hello, but Alex stiffened and apologized. The delivery man and I exchanged puzzled looks. What's wrong? This man isn't mad at you, you know.
Yeah, buddy, I'm not scary at all, see?
The delivery man said, pulling out a piece of candy from his pocket.
Here, take this and cheer up.
After handing the candy to Alex and driving away in his truck, I again asked Alex what was wrong, but he just averted his eyes, biting his lower lip in frustration. Then one day, a large typhoon approached the area where I lived. Although we avoided a direct hit, intermittent rain continued all day due to its effects. Some areas experienced band-like heavy rainfalls, with the news reporting a month's worth of rain might fall in just a few hours. At Relax Place, where there would normally be a line of customers waiting to get in during the busy lunch hour, the flow of customers was as sparse as dripping water due to the rain. As the wind grew stronger, even those few customers disappeared, leading the owner to sigh and say,
Looks like we won't have any customers today, Catherine. You can go home.
After packing up some leftover ingredients in a bag, I ran to my car parked behind the restaurant, struggling to keep my umbrella from turning inside out in the strong wind, and my clothes were soaking wet by the time I got in the car. I wiped my face and body with a towel I had in the dashboard, just to make me feel better. Turning on the radio, the sound was drowned out by the noise of the rain pounding outside, so I turned up the volume to the maximum. The rain will continue for a while, the anchor said carefully, but I could tell just by looking at the torrential rain slamming against the window. When I started driving onto the main road, I got stuck in a long traffic jam due to the typhoon's impact, which also paralyzed the rail service. The view through the windshield was a blurry white, but the traffic lights' red glared at the drivers at regular intervals, tauntingly bright. I wonder if there's anyone brave enough to walk the crosswalk in this downpour. Glancing casually at the sidewalk, I spotted a boy about elementary school age. "What, Alex?" I recognized him instantly because, despite the heavy rain, he stood out without an umbrella, dragging a plastic bag with its handle apparently torn off on the asphalt. I leaned over to the passenger seat to open the door and called out to him as if scolding, "Alex, get in right now."
Grandma, Grandma.
Seeing me, Alex smiled faintly, climbed into the passenger seat with heavy steps, then immediately leaned against me and became motionless. I shook his shoulder and slapped his cheek, calling out, "Alex, Alex," but he kept his eyes closed, breathing heavily, not responding. Feeling his forehead, I noticed an abnormal heat and exclaimed in shock, "Well, you are burning up."
Grandma's hand feels nice.
Feeling my touch, Alex murmured this before losing consciousness. "Alex, hold on." I quickly took the thermometer from my bag and placed it under his armpit, displaying a temperature of 103.1 degrees Fahrenheit. I rushed to send a message to Sarah via text, but no matter how long I waited, there was no reply, not even a read receipt. What is she doing at a time like this? Anger toward Sarah welled up, but I realized I needed to focus on saving Alex's life and immediately called 911. The plastic bag Alex clung to was stuffed with lots of snacks and fruits like apples, pears, and bananas, but I had no time to question it then. Soon, I heard the high-pitched siren of the emergency vehicle and announcements directing the traffic to make way. "This way, hurry, please." I couldn't stand still and ran out into the pouring rain to signal to the ambulance driver. Upon reaching the hospital, everything was set for immediate reception, and Alex was quickly attended to by a doctor.
"It's a cold, with symptoms of pneumonia. Fortunately, it's mild, and there's no threat to his life. We'll start within 4 and then move on to oral medication."
"Thank you," I said, relieved, but the doctor still looked concerned. Doctor, is there something else?"
"The cold isn't from getting rained on just now. He probably had it before then. The swelling of the tonsils and the rash under his nose, these don't happen in just an hour. It's likely that Alex had been sick with a cold since yesterday or the day before. Yet he was out in the rain without an umbrella. Poor thing. Look how red and chapped his nose is from wiping it so much. The pneumonia was mild, but a slight delay in treatment could have been life-threatening."
The doctor looked at me questioningly, but I had no idea how to respond.
Grandma.
Alex regained consciousness and called out to me in a weak voice. I held his hand and spoke gently into his ear. "Alex, what is it? Do you want to say something?"
That man. The delivery guy, he's really close with her. When Dad's at work, that guy always comes, and I've seen them hugging each other.
You mean Sarah? Alex struggled to convey what he had witnessed, and I felt an overwhelming sense of anguish. This meant Sarah was having an affair.
I've been sick since yesterday. But today, that guy came again and told me to leave right now. I said no because I didn't want to go out in the rain. Then, the guy packed up various things into a plastic bag, telling me you are in the way, go play delivery boy, and sent me out.
The plastic bag, the one you had, filled with snacks and fruit, was it heavy? Did that delivery man make you carry it? Alex nodded clearly.
The guy said, take it to Grandma's place, with a laugh.
The doctor and I exchanged looks.
This is serious. As a doctor, I cannot overlook this situation.
I can't forgive her either. We must do something about that woman. The surge of anger and sorrow within me felt ready to explode. By the time I was heading home, the rain had stopped, and the sunlight shone brightly on the moist asphalt. Jenny, I'm so sorry for this. I promise to protect your precious Alex. I talked to the photo of Jenny smiling happily while holding newborn Alex. I felt guilty for not realizing his suffering. Not only was I angry at Sarah and her lover, but I also felt the weight of my own inadequacy. When Mike said he wanted to remarry, I was overjoyed, thinking it meant he could move past his sorrow and start anew. Now, feeling resentful towards my past self, I repeatedly punched my thigh, trying to release some of the pent-up emotions, though it was nothing compared to Alex's pain. The doorbell rang, and thinking it was a visitor, I hastily wiped my tears and forced a smile in the mirror. Coming, I said, heading to the door to welcome the guest. There was Sarah, smiling, still unaware of everything.
I'm so sorry, Catherine, for making you look after Alex.
She was still playing the part of a considerate mother.
Alex, Mommy is here to pick you up. Come out.
Sarah called out loudly towards the back of the house, thinking Alex was playing there. What? Alex isn't here today. Are you saying he's not at your house? Then where could he have gone? I feigned ignorance about Alex's whereabouts, and Sarah's face turned pale rapidly.
What do you mean he's not here? Alex definitely said he was going to Grandma's house and left excitedly.
Did he really say that? That can't be true. It's been raining all morning, and the wind was so strong. Even adults would hesitate to go out in that weather.
But he clearly said he was going to deliver some snacks and fruits to Grandma. He must have been pretending to be a delivery boy.
Did he really say that, even though it was pouring rain outside? You let our 6-year-old run out into the storm without stopping him or even looking for him.
I didn't stop him, because, I let children do as they please, you know. I believe in respecting a child's autonomy. That's my parenting philosophy.
Sarah's attitude, as if the whole situation was Alex's fault, drove my anger to its peak. Alex is in the hospital now. He got wet in the heavy rain without an umbrella, developed pneumonia, and the doctor said it could have been life-threatening if treatment had been delayed.
What?
Sarah screamed in shock, then glared at me furiously.
Are you lying to me? Do you enjoy seeing me panic? Isn't that shameful?
I don't care what you think. What matters is Alex. He suffered enough. If you want to be a mother, start by putting your child first. Sarah attempted to argue, her teeth bared, but then realized the gravity of the situation and asked, "Which hospital is he at?" "I'll go get the car. Wait for me."
No need. I can't trust you.
Sarah refused with a frightening expression and called a taxi using her phone app. Was she trying to secretly communicate with her lover or conspiring to align their stories in case Alex's mistreatment came to light? I returned to the hospital to wait, and Sarah arrived about 10 minutes later.
Where is Alex Gay's room?
She asked hospital staff indiscriminately, pretending to be a concerned mother. However, she was stopped by a nurse at the entrance to the room.
This area is off limits for visitors. You are not allowed in.
Alex, Mommy is here now. You can relax.
Sarah smiled gently like a saint, but then two people in suits approached her. "Are you Sarah Kay? We need to talk to you. Please come with us to the station," showing their police badges.
What? Why do I have to go with the police? I'm his mother. Let me see Alex. What have I done to deserve this? Let me go.
Despite her resistance, the police officers remained calm and detained her firmly. The doctor who examined Alex had advised involving the police, believing Alex's testimony couldn't be ignored.
If my grandson were in the same situation, I might not be satisfied with just going to the police.
The doctor said, half jokingly, half seriously, with a hearty laugh. It was getting dark outside, but I saw that Mike, who should have been on a business trip, had called. I called him back.
I had a meeting in the next county and came home early to find no one there, and I was shocked.
I told Mike everything that had happened that day without hiding anything. Initially, he was skeptical, but his tone gradually fell, and he promised to look around the house for any evidence. About an hour later, Mike called back.
One piece of evidence after another. Photos and videos of them looking cozy together, even traces of them using our bedroom.
Learning of his wife's betrayal and the mistreatment of his precious son left by his late wife, Mike spoke as if venting his hatred. Later, Sarah was arrested for child neglect, and her lover, the delivery man, was also arrested and charged as a co-conspirator. Frankly, I still don't want to believe that Sarah could do such horrible things to Alex. I wish all of Alex's suffering were just lies. It might sound odd with the trial coming up, but I feel like running away right now. Hearing the truth is just too painful. But facing that truth head-on is the only thing we can do for Alex now. Reliving his suffering through the trial is all we have. Feeling helpless, I convinced myself that exposing the crimes Sarah and her lover committed in court is our duty. As the trial began, Sarah kept looking down in the defendant's seat, making me think she regretted her actions. However, when she looked up and caught my eye, without any concern for those around, she twisted her face and stuck out her tongue defiantly. The media were stunned by Sarah's lack of remorse. What a terrible person. Does she understand her situation? Were the cries from around the room. The judge had to call for order to quiet the commotion. Sarah, smirking, took the stand and began narrating the events leading up to the incident as if giving a business report. She admitted seeing an opportunity when Mike, who was advancing in his career, became depressed after losing his beloved wife.
Well, honestly, he wasn't my type, but he seemed wealthy and likely to become more powerful, so I thought I could live comfortably by getting involved with him.
She spoke frankly, showing no remorse. Sarah revealed that her affair with her lover, Michael, predated her relationship with Mike.
He's handsome, just like movie stars, and exactly my type.
She continued her relationship with Michael, thinking it unlikely to be discovered by Mike, who was often away for work. She also confessed to finding Alex annoying from the start. His expressions, which sometimes resembled those of the late Jenny, stirred up feelings of hatred in her. While meeting Michael, she treated Alex harshly, laughing at his crying and making sure he couldn't enter the house when they were together. They even recorded these moments on their smartphones.
When I threatened him with a scary face saying, "Don't tell anyone," he surprisingly listened. It was quite fun for me. But when I got pregnant with Michael's child, I panicked. If the affair came out, I'd be thrown out, losing access to any money. So I had an idea. I can just have the baby and pretend it's my husband's. That way, the affair wouldn't be discovered, and even the unborn child would have inheritance rights. Thinking that, Alex's presence became an unbearable nuisance.
After Sarah finished explaining her motives for mistreating Alex, the courtroom fell silent, appalled by her selfishness. Her lawyer, sweating, tried desperately to mitigate her crimes.
Are we not done yet?
Sarah yawned, undermining her lawyer's efforts. She continued on the stand.
It wasn't just Alex. Catherine, too, coming over every single time something happened, was unbearably annoying to me. I wanted every single second with Michael. It was so annoying.
Her blunt expression of her feelings further worsened the judge's impression of her. As a result, she received a harsher sentence than the prosecution's request, and the trial concluded. Needless to say, Mike and Sarah's divorce was finalized. Forced to pay a substantial amount in alimony, Sarah's life of poverty was set in stone.
Alex, I was wrong. I was always busy with work and left you under Sarah's care. It must have been hard. Marrying such a terrible woman was my mistake. I am truly sorry.
It's okay, Dad. I love you. But I have one request.
What is it? Anything you want, just tell me, and I'll buy it for you.
It's not that. What I want most is to be with you.
Mike, with tears in his eyes, then hugged his son tightly, shouting, "Alex." Later, Mike applied for a transfer from his travel-intensive job to a more stable office position. Everyone was surprised, but given the recent events, no one objected. Years later, after being released from prison, Sarah and Michael began loitering around our home.
It's your family's fault we're labeled as criminals. Can't rent a place or get a job. You've made us suffer. Take responsibility.
I immediately called the police to handle Sarah's misplaced accusations. Afterward, Mike and I decided to sell our house and move to a secure luxury apartment using the sale proceeds. Returning to the relaxed place with Mike and Alex after a long time, the owner greeted us with a smile.
"Alex, have you grown taller since I last saw you?"
As I stood up, asking out of habit, "Can I help with anything?" the owner came over.
No need, Catherine. You're a guest today, right? And it's my treat. Especially since Alex is here too. Eat whatever you like.
I love the fried pork meal here. But even more than that, I love being with Dad and Grandma the most.
Seeing my grandson's smile return, I swore to my heart, I will never let that smile be taken away again.
Entering Jane's house, I opened the door to a room that seemed like an old storage space. In the corner of the dark room, I found Violet. What on earth happened? As I called out, Violet looked up. She looked very pale.
Grandma.
Next to Violet were textbooks and workbooks. How long have you been here without even turning on the light?
I've been here for a year.
What did you just say? Did she study here for a year? And there were dishes and cups around, too. Had she been eating here as well? Can you tell me what's going on, Violet? I took Violet's hand and spoke to her. After hearing Violet's story, I couldn't hide my shock. I never imagined she had suffered so much. The root of all evil was Jane. I left the storage room, completely furious. I found Jane and screamed at her, shaking with anger. What were you thinking? Locking a child up in such a place. What you are doing is wrong. Just as Jane was about to retort, the front door opened and someone came into the house.
How could you?
I stared at a bewildered Jane with a cool gaze. My name is Hillary Taylor, 63 years old. I currently live with my husband, Kyle, just the two of us, and I'm a housewife. Kyle is 65 this year. He's retired, and we spend our days relaxing at home. We have two sons, Kevin and Jeremy. Kevin is 38, and Jeremy is 34. They've long since left the nest and built their own families. So now we only see them during holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Since the younger son's family has no children, our only grandchild is Violet, the daughter of our eldest son's family. Violet is a lively and adorable girl who turns 8 this year. She always talks to me, calling out Grandma, Grandma, and gives me her drawings, which she's good at. One of her drawings, featuring smiling portraits of Kyle and me, is displayed prominently in our living room. Looking at it always warms our hearts.
I wonder how Violet is doing. I'd like to see her soon.
Kyle remarks with a squint. Yes, I do want to see her drawings again. Violet was happily drawing today as well. We believed that. But at that time, we couldn't imagine the unexpected events that were happening to her. It was on a sunny morning. The doorbell rang, and I opened the door to find Jane standing there.
It's been a while, Hillary.
Jane, what brings you here, all of a sudden? I was surprised. Jane is our eldest son, Kevin's wife. Since they live about a 3-hour train ride from here, they rarely visit our home. What happened to her?
Sorry for the sudden visit. I have a favor to ask.
What is it? Come in first. I led Jane into the living room. Kyle too was surprised by her unfamiliar presence. Jane, like Kevin, is 38 years old. She looked the same as the last time we met, with light makeup and simple clothes. However, her face seemed to carry a hint of fatigue. Without touching the tea I offered, Jane started to speak.
Hillary, Kyle, I actually need to borrow some money.
What? Why?
It's for Violet's tuition. She's attending a tutoring now, but we're thinking of enrolling her in another one that has a track record of sending students to top schools.
Tutoring. I was taken aback. Violet is still in elementary school. Isn't tutoring unnecessary at her age? I was about to say so, but times have changed, and I'm not familiar with the current educational situation. Therefore, I couldn't strongly object.
Violet wants to become a lawyer. That's why she needs to focus on her studies from now on.
That's the first time I'm hearing this. Violet loves drawing. I seem to recall that she previously mentioned wanting to pursue a career in drawing or illustration. I was puzzled. Suddenly, Jane's eyes narrowed sharply.
How can you say that? That's not possible. Violet is going to become a lawyer no matter what anyone says. So please lend us the money.
Jane's vehement demand made both Kyle and me shrink back.
If that's the case, we need to check with Kevin first.
Kyle said, to which Jane suddenly regained her composure and answered with a smile.
Kyle, it's okay. Kevin agrees to. We'll pay you back as soon as we get the bonus.
But she's already attending a tutoring, right? And you're saying to add another one.
Hillary, the competition starts from elementary school these days. Without good education, you're left behind in society. It's all for Violet's future. Please understand, I beg you.
Now she was tearfully making her plea. Kyle and I exchanged looks and fell silent. It's hard to argue when it's for Violet's future.
I'd like to hear it directly from Violet, though.
Violet is studying hard at home right now, not wanting to waste any time. She's really trying her best. So please don't disturb her. Shouldn't we as adults do everything possible to support Violet's wishes?
Is that so? How much do you need?
For now, just $1,000 for the summer courses. The payment deadline is close.
Kyle sighed.
All right, if that's what Violet wants to do.
Yes, I'll withdraw it from the bank. Thus, we lent the money to Jane. But it was all news to me. I had no idea Violet wanted to be a lawyer. But after all, we are just grandparents and don't live with her. It's no wonder Violet has a change of mind. That's what I thought, trying to convince myself. But the story didn't end there. A few days later, while reading the newspaper, Kyle looked up and said thoughtfully,
About Violet, does she really want to become a lawyer? I mean, if she truly thinks so, of course, I'll support her. But it was quite unexpected.
Yes, maybe we should hear it from Violet herself. I decided to make a phone call. Violet doesn't have a cell phone. The only way to communicate with her would be through Jane. Hello, Jane, thanks for the other day. Is Violet there? Can I talk to her?
Violet, she can't answer the phone. She's busy.
Jane responded curtly. Just for a short while. Then Jane suddenly started yelling.
Just for a while. What if she misses solving even one problem during that time? The entrance test for the tutoring we talked about is coming up. The test scores will determine her class placement. She has to get into the top class or she'll fall behind. Do you know how hard it is to catch up after that?
I was taken aback by Jane's torrential tirade. And since she was completely unyielding, I had no choice but to reluctantly end the call.
How did it go?
Kyle asked anxiously, and I shook my head. No good, Jane wouldn't put her on the phone.
What? Why?
I don't understand it myself. I'll try calling Kevin. I searched for Kevin's name on my smartphone's contact list. In fact, Kevin was not living with Jane currently. He had been on a work assignment alone for about a year now. He proudly told me last year that the company had high hopes for him and promised a promotion upon his return from this assignment. I didn't want to involve him too much, but it seemed necessary now. Kevin answered the phone immediately.
Hello, oh, it's you, Mom.
Sorry to bother you when you're busy. It's about Violet. I briefly recounted my exchange with Jane. Then Kevin expressed surprise.
Wait, what? Violet wants to be a lawyer. I've never heard of that.
Kevin, like us, had never heard of it. Moreover, he was unaware that Jane had become so enthusiastic about Violet's education. Being away from home for a year, it's no wonder.
I'm not quite sure, but maybe Jane has started saying some odd stuff. I'm swamped with work right now. It'll be a while before I can return home, but I'll try to talk to them in person next time.
That would be better. It might be nosy, but I'm really curious about Jane's sudden change.
Is it that weird? Oh, now that I mentioned it, speaking of lawyers.
Kevin shared something with me. It was enough to fuel my anxiety. Over the weekend, Kyle and I visited Jane's house. It was about the eldest son's family. Maybe it's wrong for me to interfere. Still, I had a bad feeling about it. After all, Jane was just screaming, and we hadn't really heard Violet's side of things. I wanted to know what Violet thought. Besides, she is now a fatherless life, which means a single-parent home. I wondered how Violet was spending her time alone with Jane. When I rang the bell and introduced ourselves, Jane came out in a panic.
What's the matter, Hillary and Kyle?
Jane was clearly flustered. A friend of mine lives around here, so I was just stopping by on my way back from visiting her. I responded with a smile. A little white lie can't hurt. By the way, is Violet around? Jane fumbled for an answer to my question.
Well, she's not feeling well and is resting in the back. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, even though you've come all this way.
It's all right. I just wanted to see her for a bit.
No, but she probably wouldn't want to meet you. So maybe not today.
Jane was adamant about not letting us see Violet, not budging an inch. Something felt off. At that moment, Kyle spoke up.
Ouch. My back. My chronic back problem.
Kyle crouched down, clutching his back.
Are you okay?
He glanced at me. He said it wasn't chance.
Jane, is there a chiropractor around here?
Well, I think
We still have the taxi waiting over there. Could you show us the way? Sorry for the trouble.
Kyle forcefully asked Jane for directions and headed towards the taxi. As I watched the two of them leave, I muttered, "Sorry, Jane." Then I entered the house. It was silent, with no sign of anyone around. I opened each room door, searching for Violet. "Violet, where are you, Violet?" She wasn't in any of those rooms. The last place left was an unused, old storage room. There, in the dark room, was Violet. With resolve, I opened the door. "What's going on?" When I spoke, Violet looked up. Her face, which I hadn't seen in a while, seemed terribly pale. Next to Violet were textbooks and workbooks.
Grandma,
"Why are you here in the dark, without even the light on?"
I've been studying here the whole time, using a flashlight to save on the electricity bill, solving problems.
Violet spoke weakly. "Since when?"
For a year, I've been here.
"What?" "Studying in a place like this for a year. And there were dishes and cups around. Was she eating here as well? Can you tell me what's going on, Violet?" I took Violet's hand, urging her to talk.
But
Violet hesitated. "I wonder if she's afraid of Jane." "Don't worry, Violet. Grandma's on your side." Violet started to cry and began to speak haltingly. And then she began to speak haltingly. This was Violet's story. A year ago, when Kevin was transferred to work alone, and Violet was left to live with Jane. That's when changes in Jane began. While Violet was drawing as usual, Jane spoke to her.
Violet, you're already 8 years old. You should start focusing more on your studies for middle school, not just drawing silly pictures all the time.
Of course, Violet argued back. But Jane wouldn't listen. On the contrary, she tore up the illustration of the violet.
Listen, stop wasting time on drawings that won't benefit your future. You're going to be a lawyer. It's a respected profession, helping people. Sounds good, right?
Jane said this with a smile. That's when Violet's days of hell began. She was forced to attend tutoring, dealing with a massive amount of homework. Though only in 3rd grade, Violet was pushed to study at a middle school level for accelerated education. Rest was not an option. If test results were poor, Jane would rage and berate Violet. Eventually, Violet was told, as punishment, you'll live in the storage room, making her eat and study there. Moreover, if you can't answer the questions, you don't deserve to sleep inside the house, so she slept under the eaves. Sometimes, Kevin would return from his assignment. However, Jane would act normally only when Kevin was home. She also made sure to warn Violet, you know what will happen if you tell your dad, right? This made it impossible for anyone to seek help. I was stunned by these revelations. Jane's behavior wasn't just being enthusiastic about education. It was clearly excessive. I was trembling with anger. Jane said it was for Violet's future, But this is not for Violet.
I've been drawing these secretly because I would get scolded by Mom.
Violet showed me a piece of paper. There was a colorful drawing. It was a bright and cheerful picture that seemed to bring joy to anyone who looked at it. Thinking that she had been drawing with all her might in such a hellish environment made my heart ache. Clearly, Violet doesn't want to be a lawyer. It was all Jane's imposition. What was she thinking, forcing Violet to do this and lying to us? I looked into Violet's eyes and said, "I understand now, thank you for telling me. Let's go to my place for now. It's not good for you to stay here." The more I heard, the more convinced I became. Jane was not in a state to accept reasoning. The priority was to get Violet out of this house. Then, there was a commotion near the entrance. Jane and Kyle must have returned. "Violet, wait here for a bit," I told her and stepped out of the storage room. I had to speak clearly to Jane. Seeing me come out of the room, Jane raised her voice.
"Hillary, how dare you enter the room without permission? Did you and Kyle deceive me, pretending his back hurt?"
Looking past Jane, I saw Kyle now standing up straight. "I'm sorry about that, but you've been lying too, right? Saying Violet wants to be a lawyer, that's a blatant lie. Locking a child up like that. What were you thinking?" Jane retorted with anger in her face.
"I'm not lying. Violet is going to be a lawyer. That's what's been decided."
Kyle was taken aback by Jane's furious outburst. The reason for her obsession with the lawyer. That was the answer to what Kevin told me the other day. "It's not Violet, it's you who wanted to be a lawyer, right?"
Well,
Jane, struck by the truth, stumbled over her words. According to Kevin, Jane once aspired to be a lawyer, but failed the exams. She became an office worker because she was unable to obtain a license to be a lawyer. Then she met Kevin and got married, and perhaps after having Violet, she was reminded of her old dream. It seemed she was trying to live out her own desires through her child. I spoke to her firmly. At that moment, the front door opened. Children are not tools for fulfilling your dreams. Education is important, but not to the extent of forcing it like this. You are trapped in your past, and do not see Violet as she is now.
Be quiet. What do you know, Hillary? Becoming a lawyer means a secure future. It's all for Violet's sake.
Jane's continued shouting was painfully desperate. Then the front door opened. The person who entered the living room was Kevin.
Kevin, why? How did you?
Jane was perplexed. He was panting in his suit. He hurried back from his workplace.
I got a call from Mom and was worried, so I came back early. I had no idea it had come to this.
Ignoring me, Jane desperately pleaded to Kevin.
It's all a misunderstanding. I want to support Violet's dream.
Kevin was not confused by Jane's words.
I heard from Mom. You visited Mom to borrow money to put Violet in an expensive tutoring, right? And you lied about me agreeing to it.
Chastised by Kevin, Jane momentarily looked guilty. But she quickly regained her composure and began to speak.
This was an investment for the future, not really a debt.
Jane mumbled her excuses. At that moment, Kevin looked around and picked up a document from the desk.
Is this the tutoring?
It turned out to be an application form for tutoring. The pamphlet contained the convenient words dramatic grade improvement and success in entering prestigious high schools. Despite Violet already attending one, Jane was planning to enroll her in even more. Looking around house, books on child education methods were scattered everywhere, including an application for a seminar titled Turning Your Child into a Genius. Of course, it would cost something. The amount of money being spent was shocking. Kevin looked at the tutoring application, appalled.
It's so expensive. What are you thinking?
But I manage with my savings from before I was married. Recently it's not been enough, so I just asked your parents for help.
Jane made an excuse on the spur of the moment. She doesn't seem to think he's at fault one bit. Kevin sighed in frustration, deciding to ignore Jane. It looks like Kyle has decided to ignore Jane from now on. Turning to me, he said wearily,
There's no point in talking to Jane anymore. Where is Violet?
She's in the storage room in the back. She's been isolated there, as a punishment for not being able to study. She even eats and sleeps there, under the eaves. I just can't leave Violet here. Upon hearing this, Kevin exploded. What? That's unbelievable. Then Violet came out of the room.
Dad, you're back.
She was noticeably thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. Seeing her, Kevin embraced Violet.
I'm so sorry, Violet. I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
He then glared at Jane.
Violet can't stay here anymore. I'll take her with me.
That's best.
You can't just decide that.
Kevin shouted at Jane, who was persistently pressing the issue.
I can't leave her with you anymore. Reflect on your actions alone.
Jane flinched and fell silent. Leaving Jane standing there, Kevin, Violet, Kyle, and I left the house. We headed towards the station, starting to walk. During this time, Kevin was still handling calls from work, indicating he was extremely busy. After finishing the call, Kevin apologized to us.
Sorry, Mom. Work is hectic. Could you look after Violet for a while? I'll sort things out once things calm down.
Of course, we'll take good care of Violet. Don't worry. Are you okay, Violet? I turned to Violet.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Violet looked a bit anxious. I wonder if Jane's spell hasn't been broken yet. I squeezed her hand reassuringly. By the time we reached home, it was completely dark. Violet finished her dinner and fell asleep immediately. She must have been under a lot of pressure lately. She seemed to have worn herself out completely. Poor child, being forced into this. I couldn't help but tear up looking at Violet's sleeping face.
I never imagined it would come to this.
Kyle sighed deeply. Kevin left Violet in our care and returned to his posting. Kevin said he was going to persuade Jane, but can he? My worries proved accurate. A week later, Kevin contacted us. He had been trying to reason with Jane in between his busy work schedule. Kevin repeatedly tried to persuade Jane, urging her to realize the foolishness of her actions and to change her ways. However, Jane showed no signs of repentance. Far from showing remorse, Jane even said, "Where have you put Violet? She will fall behind in her studies. There are tests coming up soon."
Are you still talking like that? Go back to who you were.
Kevin pleaded, but she retorted immediately.
I'm normal. I'm the one who thinks about Violet more than anyone else.
Despite hours of conversation, no resolution was reached, eventually leading to her hanging up the phone. The situation was at a standstill. It was around the time discussions emerged about considering divorce and Kevin formally taking custody of Violet. One morning, the doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, then there was Jane standing there. Jane. She was in her pajamas, her hair a mess, and her eyes were wild.
Hillary, Violet is here, right? Give her back to me.
She barged in, searching for Violet.
What's going on?
Kyle was shocked by her sudden appearance. Ignoring him, Jane rushed upstairs.
Violet, Violet.
I hurried after her, and she found the room where Violet was.
Mom.
Upon seeing Jane, Violet exclaimed in surprise.
Come on, Violet, we're leaving. You have a test to study for.
What are you talking about? Violet is. I tried to interject, but Jane shouted.
Stay out of her, Hillary.
Violet stood up, confused by her mother's sudden visit. And she declared firmly,
I won't go back.
What are you saying?
I won't become a lawyer. Studying is important, but I have other things I want to do in the future. Don't decide my future without me.
Violet's assertive tone shocked Jane, distorting her face. I embraced Violet's shoulders. Well said, Violet. But Jane, furious, glared at me.
I get it. You must have brainwashed Violet. And forgivable. She is going to become a lawyer.
The idea that we had brainwashed Violet was absurd. Jane has become uncommunicative. Even though I thought it was pointless, I raised my voice. I just had to say this one thing. What are you talking about? Wake up, can't you hear your child's real voice? Violet is suffering because of what you're doing. You keep saying it's for the child, but you're only thinking of yourself. If you want to be a lawyer so badly, you should pursue it yourself, not force it on Violet.
Huh.
Jane fell silent, looking frustrated. But in the next moment, Jane's eyes gleamed sharply. And she grabbed Violet's arm as if to use force.
Come on, Violet, you need to study.
No. Let me go, Mom.
Violet protested, trying to pull away as Jane dragged her out of the room. Wait. Violet resisted. During their struggle, they lost balance.
Watch out.
Kyle shouted. But it was too late. They tumbled down the stairs. Violet, Jane. When I called out, Violet responded with I'm okay and managed to get up, but Jane remained motionless. Kyle immediately called an ambulance. I was bewildered by the serious turn of events. Jane was quickly taken to the hospital by ambulance. She took an MRI, but there was no brain problem, and she suffered a temporary concussion. However, even after regaining consciousness, she appeared unable to distinguish reality, repeating disturbing words as if delirious.
Violet, you need to study, Violet.
The extent of her obsession became frightening. Jane then began to act out violently. Jane became erratic, crying out suddenly, and mistaking a nurse for Violet. She shouted, "Study!" Observing this, the doctor remarked, "It seems her mental state is more of a concern than her physical health." Jane was transferred to the psychiatric department. The doctor said she should stay in the hospital for a while because of her raging and screaming. I felt there was something wrong with her, but she had a problem with her mind. Afterward, having hospitalized Jane, we contacted her parents. We asked them to come to the hospital to explain Jane's recent condition. Her parents were visibly pale. They never imagined their daughter would end up like this. Jane's parents promised to take good care of her. After some time, Kevin expressed his wish to divorce Jane. Jane naturally refused. However, Kevin initiated legal proceedings, and as a result, the divorce was finalized. Kevin gaining custody of Violet. Later, we were called by Jane's parents and visited the hospital again.
"We've caused you so much trouble."
In the hospital's meeting room, Jane's mother apologized deeply. Then, they handed us an envelope.
"This is the money she borrowed. We are very sorry."
It was the $1,000 that she said was needed for Violet's tutoring, which she borrowed from me and Kyle. It seemed Jane's parents had covered the debt. I looked intently at their faces. Despite being around their 60s, just like us, Jane's parents looked much older. This turmoil must have aged them considerably. "Thank you kindly. How's Jane doing?" I casually asked.
"That's just it. She hasn't improved much. She keeps shouting at anyone to study or yelling you must become a lawyer. So, we have no choice but to keep her here for a while longer."
Saying that, Jane's mother sighed. Apparently, when Jane was young, her parents incessantly told her to study hard and aim for a respectable career. Sometimes even yelling at her when her grades were poor.
I wonder if it's because we pushed Jane too hard when she was young that things turned out this way. It's too late now, but we deeply regret it.
Jane's mother's unexpected confession left me with mixed feelings. This was the root of Jane's breakdown. A negative cycle passed down from her parents to Jane, and then to Violet. However, this cycle had to be stopped. With resolve, I declared, "Children have their own happiness. When parents impose too many of their ideals, it can break the child's spirit." Violet was also in danger of this. From now on, Kevin and we will take responsibility to ensure Violet grows up freely and happily. Jane's mother was in tears. She must be reflecting on what she did to little Jane. I hope that from now on, they can live while offering support to Jane, whose spirit has been broken. With these thoughts, we left the hospital. Afterward, Violet and Kevin began living with us. Kevin requested a transfer. Kevin negotiated with his superiors to work at a branch near our family home. I was worried that this might affect his chances for promotion, but Kevin reassured me, dismissing the concern as if it were nothing.
It's all right. I've been too focused on work and overlooked the discrepancies in Jane and Violet's relationship, which I regret. Now, I want to be more attentive to Violet.
Saying this, Kevin smiled. Fortunately, Kevin, who had an understanding boss, won the promotion on his performance. This brought us relief. Violet has regained her brightness since then. The move necessitated a school change, which initially worried us. But Violet said, "I'd rather transfer schools." In her previous environment, academic pressure had limited her playtime with friends. It seems that this led to Violet becoming isolated. However, Violet made a lot of new friends after she changed schools and became brighter. Now, she enjoys drawing her favorite illustrations and sharing them with everyone. She smiles and says she wants to be an illustrator in the future. Seeing Violet return to her original self and being happy is the most joyful thing for us. Parents worry about their children's future. And parents tend to put more rails on their children than they need. But if you make a mistake, it's just an imposition of your ideal. We keep this in mind, gently overseeing their growth. The most important thing is Violet's smile. We continue to hope that Violet will grow up healthy and happy.
Well, from today, please take care of the 7 of us.
Upon opening the front door, there stood my son, whom I hadn't seen for several months. Behind him, his wife and children were standing with large luggage. I hadn't heard anything about this, and I told him it was rude to suddenly show up at one's parents' house with so many people, but my son was unfazed. He entered, brushing off my words with an indifferent yay, a sight that was nothing short of terrifying. Why did my son come back? Months ago, after I criticized him and his wife for their reckless spending, it was he who called me a greedy old hag and cut off ties with me. My son, much stronger than me, easily pushed open the door and came in.
There's obviously not enough room for 7 people here, you know.
My son stretched out his arms straight and firmly grabbed my shoulders. He said with a pleasant smile, causing me pain,
Once you're done with cleaning and laundry, Mom, you can sleep in the hallway.
My name is Barbara, a 75-year-old woman living on a pension, just an ordinary American woman. Before I got married, I was all about my career at the company. Initially, I loved my job, and since there were many women around, there was an understanding for women working overtime. Back then, the societal norm was once a woman gets married, she should stay at home. However, my company said, "You've been doing great work, so if possible, we'd like you to stay. What do you say?" It was fulfilling work, but my husband wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife, so I became one after we got married. I also got really into cooking, putting extra effort into my usual dishes, making them taste professional. I had always admired the idea of spending time and adding that extra touch to cooking. I secretly found joy in having more time for my hobby of sewing by being a stay-at-home wife. We only had one child, Jason, but I cherish the time we spent together as a family of 3. When Jason was young and in elementary school, I loved how clingy he was. As he hit middle school, Jason went through a rebellious phase and sometimes put emotional distance between us, but he was blessed with good friends. He even has friends from middle school he keeps in touch with to this day. In high school, influenced by his friends or maybe thinking about college, Jason focused more on his studies. My husband, despite his old-fashioned views, was supportive in raising our child, making the tough parenting journey enjoyable. I was lucky to have mom friends around during high school and college entrance exams, discussing things like, what approach are you taking with your child? What advice should we give? And how can we support their study focus? I ended up paying for most of the wedding because Jason hadn't saved much. My husband worked hard and provided well for us, ensuring a smooth and comfortable life. My hard-working husband passed away 5 years ago after a battle with illness. Now, I'm living alone, getting by on my pension and the savings my husband left behind. I use my sewing skills to create pieces and sell the finished products on thrift market website, earning a bit of income. With a comfortable financial situation and no struggles in daily life, I've been leading a fulfilling life, volunteering with friends besides my hobby. Outside of volunteering, I enjoy delightful days out, like going to lunch with my friends. My son Jason, now 44 years old, married 17 years ago and has his own family. His wife, Lisa, is 40. I remember her from their school days as a quiet girl. But that image has long been replaced as I got to know her better. They have 3 children, with the eldest grandchild now 14, followed by a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. My relationship with my son and daughter-in-law is good, especially when the grandchildren were younger, as they weren't very demanding. I made sure not to do to her what I disliked being done to me as a mother-in-law, avoiding unexpected visits and giving money on special occasions so they could buy what they liked. I thought we were maintaining a healthy distance, but recently things have changed. My daughter-in-law now often asks for gifts for the grandchildren or to eat out at expensive restaurants every week. When we go out to eat, she and my son never even pretend to reach for their wallets, always choosing pricey places. But dining out is still better in a way. I enjoy seeing my grandchildren happily eating and saying how delicious everything is. Given the evolving situation, Lisa has started clamoring for accessories that clearly aren't in line with what a middle schooler would typically wear. I've known Lisa since my son was in high school. She was a quiet girl, unremarkable in both good and bad ways. I can't believe I didn't see how brazen she could be, and I just sigh. She wasn't rude to begin with, but became domineering the moment she felt she could say anything to me. Over time, relatives noticed her true nature and gradually distanced themselves. Now, only those with strong character remain in contact with her. Lisa, thinking I'm easy to manipulate, started asking for rings, necklaces, designer wallets, and bags. I've confronted her, asking, "Why do you need such expensive things? Aren't these just for you?" She insisted it was all for the kids. It starts with clothes for the elementary school's enrollment ceremony.
I need this outfit for when I attend Parents' Days. Only a designer bag will match this dress.
But I couldn't afford to buy designer bags just for that reason. Ignoring her moderately, she eventually stopped pestering me for more. However, she then started aiming for things that were hard to refuse. She would barge in while I was cooking dinner.
Please make some side dishes for me too.
When I refused,
well then, anything you have will do,
she would say, and then help herself to the fridge, taking leftovers or the newly bought pack of meat. Even when I strongly objected, she just laughed it off.
Thank you,
she said, shrugging off my arm and leaving on her own accord. Lately, I am astonished that my daughter-in-law would go to such lengths. It's common to hear about daughters-in-law being troubled by mother-in-law issues, but is it normal for me, the mother-in-law, to be the one distressed? It's audacious how she would suddenly visit and then ask for meals for her entire family. And yet, she never shows up for the Memorial Day or visits my late husband's grave. On the Thanksgiving Day, she would ask for money for the grandchildren, devour the Thanksgiving's feast, and then leave without greeting other relatives. One summer, after being ignored despite many warnings, she said,
"It's a trend now to give money on the Thanksgiving Day and during Christmas season. Give them to all the kids, please."
Without even showing respectfulness to the grave or any gift to me, she still demanded money for her 3 grandchildren, pushing me to my limit. When I finally confronted her about her appalling behavior, Jason blatantly looked at me, sighed, and even clicked his tongue.
"We're gracing you with our presence and giving you time with the grandchildren, and this is how you talk. Fine then, we won't contact this crazy old woman ever again."
Who's being crazy? Fine, I won't contact you either. Don't ever come back. Lisa left quickly with the children, not even looking back. Since then, the once frequent calls ceased, and the unexpected visits stopped. Afterward, I became busier with my sewing hobby and volunteering, continuing my days without involving my son. Blessed with supportive friends, I enjoyed lunches out and lived busy, fulfilling days. Not contacting my son brought me peaceful and calm times. With sewing, volunteering, and lunches with friends, those days of leading a stimulating life were indeed happy. During my volunteer work, a handicapped person said, "Barbara, thank you as always. It made me feel appreciated, and I was very happy." Being naturally sociable and blessed with many friends, my phone constantly rang with their calls. Whenever I received an email, the cheerful ping sound would play to make a notification, and I'd think, another invitation email, always finding the content pleasant and smiling to myself. 3 years into the estrangement, my home phone, which I hadn't set to block calls, rang for the first time in ages. It was my son. I quickly figured out how to block incoming calls on my cell phone, but I couldn't figure out how to do it on the home phone, so I left it as it was. I've been peacefully minding my own business, without any contact, actually. So what on earth is going on? On the phone, I heard, "Hello, Mom," from Jason's voice, and faintly heard Lisa asking, "Did you get through to Barbara?" It seemed they were both calling together. Jason didn't say he was well or that it had been a long time.
I need money,
He said, laughing without any shame. Appalled, I was about to hang up when I heard Jason sigh.
Actually, I got fired from my job.
What? Reacting might have been a mistake, because Jason, thinking I was listening, rapidly continued.
Actually, I had a bit of a health issue and made some mistakes. Made a pretty big blunder and was told to take responsibility. So, I got fired. No farewell party or anything.
It's been tough, huh? Keep it up, I said, but honestly, I could only think, so what? I could guess the next words from my son, who lost his job and was asking for money. Attempting to end the call quickly, Jason's desperate voice stopped me. He seemed not to expect any loan.
If money's out of the question, let's live together again.
What?
You, as my real mother, can live happily with your cute grandkids, and we save on rent. It's a win-win, right? I'll call again. So please clean the house for us.
Don't joke with me. Living with you guys won't make me happy. You cut off our parent-child relationship, and now you're shamelessly coming back because you're in trouble. You should rely on Lisa, not me. I couldn't stay silent at such selfishness, and raised my voice for the first time in a while. Then, I heard Lisa's voice from afar.
I'm working part-time now, but it's still not enough to support 3 kids, so we need your help. Don't you have any affection for your son and grandkids?
Not at all. Living with you would just mean being treated like a maid, eating for my money. I refuse to live together or give any financial support. Don't contact me again. I slammed the phone down, but it started ringing incessantly. The endless ringing annoyed me, so I picked up the receiver between calls. This would prevent other calls, but those who really need me would call my cell. However, the calls from my son and his wife didn't stop. Leaving the receiver off or putting it back, they seemed to find the exact moment to call. Tired of ignoring them, I reached out to a close friend. On a whim, I called a close entrepreneur friend on my cell. "Hello, I want to know how to block calls on the home phone." 3 months had passed since I regained peace. I was almost done with household chores and was making a drawstring bag, when suddenly the doorbell rang. It was unusual for the doorbell to ring without an appointment, so I checked the monitor and saw the faces of my son and his wife. A bad feeling crossed my mind. Having them inside would only cause more trouble. I tried to send them away, saying, "I'm busy right now, can you please leave?"
Don't be like that. We've come all this way. We have something important to discuss. Just hear us out,
he said, showing something behind him. It wasn't just their family. Lisa's parents were also there. 7 people, including my son and his wife, their 3 children, and Lisa's parents, had come unannounced, all carrying large suitcases. I couldn't help but feel reluctant to just turn away my son and daughter-in-law, especially with their parents in tow. If I were to send away guests carrying large luggage right from the doorstep, It would surely cause a scene and attract unwanted attention from the neighbors. Although I really didn't want to let them into my house, I begrudgingly led them to the guest room. After ushering Jason and Lisa along with her parents into the room, I let the 3 grandchildren play upstairs. Their joyful exclamations of "This room is so big" echoed through the house. Right off the bat, my son said to me, without any discussion,
"Mom, let's live together. We've even brought our luggage, see?"
"I can't live with you. Take your luggage and go back, please," I blurted out. A simple rejection like this wouldn't easily deter my son. Then he spoke condescendingly.
"Mom, we're trying to be filial by living together. We want to give you, who doesn't have much time left, the joy of caring for your grandchildren. Isn't that filial of me?"
I sighed in exasperation and said, "Look, as you know, I'm 75 years old. It's impossible for me to take care of the grandchildren at this age." I was disillusioned that the form refusal I had expressed over the phone seemed to have been ignored. The thought of being indebted to a son who only thinks of himself was frankly more trouble than it was worth.
Hey, Barbara, Jason is right. Living together will make things easier for you. Seeing your grandchildren every day would make you happy, right?
The thought of how much money I would be drained of, and the amount of effort I would have to put in if I ended up living with my son's family, gave me chills.
Barbara, are you considering your age? Since you don't have much time left, you can enjoy spoiling your cute grandchildren.
I had hardly spoken or even seen Lisa's parents since their marriage greeting. They are staunch Lisa supporters, probably having spoiled their only daughter immensely. And Lisa herself was likely raised in their excessively indulgent love. Then, as if to add insult to injury, Lisa's parents chimed in with their piece.
"Hey, Barbara, let's cooperate with our daughters, considering we both don't have much time left,"
said Lisa's mother, true to their nature. Their brashness must have significantly shaped her character. Though I'm unaware of their lifestyle, they seemed to regard Lisa's word as absolute.
Being the filial son, providing the old mom with the joy of caring for a lively family, that's me, right?
Jason, probably feeling emboldened by the crowd, laughed heartily. I couldn't help but wonder if Jason and Lisa were trying to put me in their debt by bringing up everything they've done for me in the past. It infuriated me how they had squandered my money as if forgetting I had covered the grandchildren's expenses, citing the daughter wants it or the son needs it. Lisa's parents seemed to agree with everything she said.
"Hey, Barbara, our Lisa is a smart girl. Let's follow her lead,"
Lisa's mother said with a smile that was too pleasant, making me feel uneasy. That's why I kept my distance from Lisa's parents. Their brazenness in approaching me so boldly, despite not having met since the wedding, was beyond rudeness. It was sheer impudence. I found Lisa's parents to be incredibly audacious.
"Mom, we're here for you, and we'll live together. You'll be happy, right? We'll start living in this house from today,"
Jason said with a smirk. He continued to dismiss me, saying,
"We'll take your room so you can sleep in the hallway from tonight on,"
with Lisa snickering in agreement.
Barbara, please.
I couldn't stand being manipulated by my son's family and Lisa's parents any longer. I pushed past them and retreated to my room on the second floor. Soon after, I came down with my carry-on, to the astonishment of my son and his wife and Lisa's parents. I'm leaving, so make yourselves at home.
What?
My son gasped.
What about the housework?
And we thought we were finally free from it.
Lisa fretted. Their words confirmed my suspicion that they intended to treat me like a maid. I was speechless at the audacity of Jason, jobless and unable to support his family, and Lisa, whose part-time work wasn't enough. Their entitlement, along with Lisa's parents tagging along, was too much to handle. The house is too much for me to manage alone. It's already been sold. You can live here if you want, but you'll need to buy it back. I informed them. My son and his wife seemed unable to grasp what I was saying. I've been planning to move out, and I started preparing 3 months ago.
This living room isn't empty, is it?
Well, the stuff here was supposed to be disposed of last. Most of the things in this house were unnecessary for the new place. Naturally, we threw away what we didn't need and took what was necessary to the new home. If you all want to live here, you'd have to buy back the house. Well, it's been well maintained and close to the station, so I don't think it'll be cheap. The living room had only a desk and simple decor, so it seemed their son didn't notice at all. The decor in this living room was supposed to be taken out by the movers after I had finished unpacking everything. That's why the living room alone had items for entertaining guests.
Mom, I'm your son, aren't I? And the kids, they're your adorable grandkids, right?
The son and his wife pleaded with me even more. I couldn't help but snort with laughter. My dear sons were gone 3 years ago. Why are you telling me this now? You should just go back to your old home.
We've already terminated our apartment lease. Without jobs, we can't pay the rent. Living on Lisa's income is tough. We have no choice but to rely on you, Mom.
Even with such pleas, I'm not obligated to support my son's family or Lisa's parents. What are you talking about? You just need to find a job, and if Lisa continues her part-time work, you should be able to manage. Don't make excuses for being unemployed. Just get a job. The main provider should be you, Jason. I pushed my son away. My parenting days are over. I have no obligation to support Jason now.
We're asking because we can find jobs right away.
My son retorted angrily. Then you should ask Lisa's parents. They are good supporters for Lisa, and it would be easier for you to live there, Jason.
Even our parents sold their house and moved here. This is the only place we have to return to.
This house isn't mine anymore. If you want it, you'll have to talk to a real estate agent to buy it. Seeing their situation, I realized they truly had nowhere else to go. It seems the son and his wife have no home to return to. But this place is no longer a home for Jason either. All I can say is, I'm flabbergasted. I'm appalled they really thought they could live with me without my consent. It's one thing for my son and his wife, but it's quite another for Lisa's parents to come and live in our house too. That's pushing it too far.
You're a parent too. Shouldn't you naturally take care of your son, daughter-in-law, and grandkids?
Lisa's mother had the nerve to say that, but their audacity is astounding. Just because I'm a parent doesn't mean I have to take care of Lisa's parents too, and if you're a parent, why not look after your daughter and her family? Plus, Jason and I cut ties 3 years ago. I've considered my son as good as gone since then, so it's too late to ask for my help now. The house is sold, and the next place is just a 1-bedroom apartment. There's no room for you folks. I said this with a mix of sarcasm and disdain. No matter how charitable I feel, I'm not broad-hearted enough to support a son and daughter-in-law with whom I've severed ties. Without a home of my own, there's nothing I can do. And for me, living on a pension, there's nothing left I can do for Jason and his family. I've got enough on my plate just dealing with my own retirement. Indeed, this house holds many memories with my husband. Memories of a time when things were better economically, and how hard my husband worked to buy this house. There are also precious memories of living with Jason. Memories that now bring tears of nostalgia. Disowning the son we raised together. Am I being irresponsible as a parent? But Jason is over 40 now, married with 3 kids of his own. If there is still a parental responsibility, then surely I must have gone wrong somewhere in raising him. Amidst all this, Jason and his family are blaming each other. It seems nobody ever thought I would sell this house. Indeed, selling this house, now that I'm over 70 and the mortgage is paid off, would be risky. Honestly, I wouldn't have done it if things hadn't gone sour with Jason and his family. It seems like Lisa and her parents have completely forgotten about me, all furious at Jason, their son-in-law.
Jason, you are to blame for lying. All the responsibility is on you.
Lisa's parents were furious.
You said Barbara would never sell the house of memories, Jason. Didn't you check? Now all plans are ruined.
Lisa was also very angry. In fact, I've been close friends with the landlord of the apartment where my son and his wife lived for a long time. Ever since Jason said he wanted to live together 3 months ago, I've been concerned. So, I decided to contact her, who is also a landlord and a friend. From her, I heard that my son had been discussing giving up the apartment for 4 months. I was stunned by my children's actions, but I was glad to know about their plans in advance. Moreover, my friend, the landlord, told me that Jason had said he wanted to live with me, to leave some of the kids' care to me, hoping to show filial piety while I was still healthy. Knowing this, I started planning various ways to avoid living with my children. With my energy at 75, there's no way I could take care of endlessly energetic grandkids. And it was clear that if my son and his wife came, they would impose household chores on me. Moreover, I feared that living together would not only burden me with caregiving, but also drain all my finances. I spent about a week pondering what kind of environment would be comfortable for me. I wondered if I, at 75, could live happily considering my physical capabilities. Living alone in this house is not possible. It's too big to manage on my own. Even now, it's a struggle to maintain it. After much thought, I decided to sell this place and move into a senior living community. Senior housing isn't as spacious as a single-family home. so I moved out only what was necessary. I had to dispose of the things that wouldn't fit in the new apartment, but with my wide circle of friends, it was easy. I sold items and furniture that wouldn't fit in the new apartment, along with excessive clothes and antiques. Many books left by my late husband were also taken by a used bookstall. Items I hadn't used in years, and those that could be used at a charity sale at my volunteer place, were all donated. I went to the local government office, got the paperwork for moving, and found out what was necessary. Most of the moving procedures and preparations were completed 4 days ago. After settling the remaining utilities like electricity, gas, and water, I was in the home filled with memories. As I was enjoying my last moments in the house with my favorite sewing, Jason showed up just as I was about to leave. While playing upstairs, my grandkids must have overheard our conversation and peeked their faces out. Prompted by a look from his parents, my 14-year-old grandchild said,
"Abandoning your own son and us, Grandma, you're heartless. A poor, lonely grandma should live with us, and you should leave all your wealth to my dad and mom."
Hearing this, the 10-year-old and 7-year-old grandchildren echoed, "Right, right," reflecting the upbringing of Jason and Lisa. Their statements, heavily influenced by Jason and Lisa, made me wonder where I went wrong with my son's upbringing. However, Jason and Lisa have made their choices. And while I foresee hardships for my grandkids, it's out of my hands and not my concern anymore. I conveyed this to my grandchildren in an admonishing way. You should ask your mom's parents instead. There's no need for it to be me.
Lisa's parents don't have savings and are barely getting by on their pensions, so that's not feasible. Besides, having us around would make life more enjoyable for you, Mom.
I was so exasperated, all I could do was sigh. Jason is an adult. Find a job while Lisa is working part-time. If Lisa is working, you can at least rent an apartment in her name. The landlord of Jason's previous apartment has left it vacant for now, not wanting to live with me. If a mortgage is feasible with Lisa's part-time income and unemployed Jason, then go ahead and buy the house back. I left the house and had already contacted a real estate agent. I'm getting on in years and just want to live a life that fits my means. Later on, it seemed my son and his family tried to buy back the house I sold. Jason apparently went to the real estate agency, aiming to repurchase the house full of memories for him. He mentioned his former home address and said, "I want to buy this property. It's a big purchase, so he needs a mortgage qualification process." It seems the application didn't pass, naturally, just on Lisa's part-time income. With an unemployed son, they couldn't even discuss a mortgage. The well-located and well-maintained house was far too expensive for Jason's budget, and they couldn't afford to buy it with a loan. Indeed, for an unemployed son and a part-time working daughter-in-law, the house was probably too expensive. Jason's family, including Lisa's parents, ended up living in the apartment they had before, squeezing in 7 people. The landlord was surprised that in addition to Jason's family and children, Lisa's parents were living there too.
It's good as a rental income, but please, no trouble. Neighborhood disputes are the last thing I want.
My friend who is a landlord mentioned. Even though they are living there thanks to the landlord's kindness, the apartment is cramped for 7 people, especially with small children, which seems to be causing a lot of stress. Living in a cramped room with Lisa's parents is just making things more stressful and frustrating for them, I've heard. An acquaintance living near Jason's apartment told me Jason and Lisa are looking increasingly worn out. Jason has found a full-time job, but with no qualifications. It's not paying much, I've heard. Thanks to the money from selling the house, my husband's savings, and my monthly pension, I can afford a decent senior apartment. I'm enjoying my days with hobbies like sewing, volunteering, and dining with friends. My environment hasn't changed much, and I feel happy living peacefully. Since moving to the senior apartment, I've joined a dance club and am having more fun than before. Being part of the dance club has increased my circle of friends, and I'm enjoying every day. I've even made a close male friend, which has added excitement to my life, making each day feel fresh. I'm not considering marriage now, but I'm happy to be helpful to someone. I'm feeling fortunate to spend quality time with good people. I hope to continue living healthily and happily like this.